Chapter 1724. The Lingyuan Continent. A huge battleship hung in the sky, emitting a daunting aura. Oh my god! This battleship is so majestic. Jun Changshao drove Eternal here not to show off, but to show off to Kujin-nan. After all, Kujin-nan was just the mayor of a city in the Lingyuan Continent. Friends. You help me, I help you. Sure enough, the warriors of the Lingyuan Continent were envious and admiring of Kujin-nan. In fact, Jun Changshao's reputation in the lower universe was unprecedented. The reason was that with frequent trade, the news of him ascending with his disciples had spread all over the major planes. Ascension. Many experts did it. Ascension. This was absolutely unprecedented and would never happen again. Therefore, Jun Changshao was not only regarded as a legend on the Starfall continent, but also in the lower universe. It was really awesome to be able to get to know a legend and even pay him a visit. Jun Patriarch. In the hall, Kujin-nan said, "Why did you come down from the upper realm again?" This meant that he had received the news that Jun Changshao saved the Starfall continent. At that time, he was about to rush over to catch up with his old friend, but Jun Changshao had already left. "I have something to do," Jun Changshao said. Kujin-nan was stunned. He had known Jun Changshao for a long time on the plain battlefield. His evaluation of Jun Changshao was that he was unrestrained and frivolous. Why was he so serious today? It was undeniable that he had the demeanor of an expert and a legend, but he was not used to it. "Oh, right." Kujin-nan said, "There's a huge sword mark on the Starfall continent, as if it divided the universe into two. Did Jun Patriarch see it?" "I did it." Jun Changshao cherished his words like gold and was full of arrogance. Kujin-nan was dumbfounded, but he soon came back to his senses and said, "No wonder." He had been wondering who could cut the universe into such a state with one sword. Now that he knew what Jun Patriarch did, he was no longer confused. Because, it was natural. As expected of a legend. He was too strong. "I, Kujin-nan, am really lucky to have met such a mighty figure." City Lord Ku. Jun Chang smiled and said, "This seat has come to tell you something." "What is it?" Kujin-nan pricked up her ears. Ever since he had become acquainted with Jun Patriarch, he had been able to gain a lot of benefits whenever he needed help. Eternal World. Kujin-nan stood in front of the gates of Ironbone City. When he sensed the heaven and earth attribute that was hundreds of times stronger than that of the spirit origin continent, the expression on his face froze, and his fingers began to tremble violently. Dream? Am I dreaming? Paw! Kujin-nan slapped herself in the face. After feeling the pain, she was overjoyed. "It's not a dream, it's real." Jun Changshao said, "If Mayor Ku likes this place, you can obtain permanent residency. Besides," he added, "you can bring your relatives." Kujin-nan immediately cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Jun Patriarch." With such a strong heaven and earth attribute, no one would reject it, not to mention that he could bring his family in. On the same day, Kujin-nan's relatives and subordinates were all sent to the Eternal World. There were at least thousands of them, and there were 30 to 50 children alone. This was what it meant to have a flourishing population and luxuriant foliage. City Lord Ku. Jun Changshao said, "Your youngest son is very talented. If he wants, he can join the Sect of all times." Kujin-nan was suddenly excited. It was definitely a great honor for her son to be praised by Jun Patriarch. "How, Kujin-nan hurriedly said, "Hurry up and greet the Patriarch." Plop! The teenager named Hao immediately knelt down and kowtowed. Disciple Ku Yenhao greets the Patriarch. Jun Changshao waved his hand and helped him up. As a member of the Sect of all times, you don't need to kneel to heaven or earth. You only need to kneel to your parents. Remember that you don't need to bow in the future. Yes. Ku Yenhao said seriously. Jun Changshao and Kujin-nan chatted for a while and then returned to the Lingyuan continent. As for Ku Yenhao, he followed Su Xiaoma to the Iron Bone Mountain. On the way, he couldn't help but ask weakly, "Senior brother, is the patriarch usually so serious?" "Not really," Su Xiaoma said, "sometimes he's very easygoing." "Oh." Ku Yanhao went up the stairs to the sect, but as soon as he walked in, he was hit in the face by a happy football with a bang, and his whole body flew out beautifully. "Aya?" Li Fei retracted his foot and said, "Why did someone come in?" Sure enough, the rule of the sect of all times that the new disciples used their faces to catch the ball was still in place. The Lingyuan continent. Jun Changshao stood at the top of the mountain, and his mind spread across the entire plain. He didn't plan to send all the creatures of the Lingyuan continent to the eternal world, because except for Kujin Nan, the others were not relatives or friends. Besides, it wasn't charity. He had no obligation to help the weak. If that was the case, why not leave? Why use his mind to spread across the entire plain? Because Jun Changshao was looking for geniuses like Kujin Nan's son, so as to give them an opportunity to reach a higher realm. Father, in the unmarked common mound, in front of the newly added grave, a young man in tattered clothes knelt on the ground, his right hand covered in blood tightly holding a recommendation letter. His name was Lin Yi. He lived in the Lin village and depended on his father. Yesterday, his father died of illness. Before he died, he gave him a recommendation letter, which allowed him to take part in the assessment of the Saint Brilliant Sect. This. A proper protagonist's life. Child, take this letter to the Saint Brilliant Sect, it can change your fate. His father's last words rang in Lin Yi's ears, and his eyes were firm. Father, I will definitely pass the assessment of the Saint Brilliant Sect, and I will definitely stand out. You don't have to take the assessment. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Lin Yi turned his head in shock, and found that a man in a black robe had appeared in front of him. His eyes were sharp, and he was extraordinary, like an inviolable god. Who? Jun Changshao. After searching the entire plain, he finally found a suitable genius to cultivate. You are the person who can change your fate. Lin Yi was silent. Do you want to become stronger? Do you want to be respected? Do you want to stand at the top of the immortal realm, and look down on the world? Faced with the three do questions, Lin Yi replied without hesitation, yes. Follow me. Jun Changshao said, I will make your dreams come true. His words seemed to contain magic and Lin Yi could not doubt him, so he stood up and said, Senior, do you want to take me as your disciple? Disciple? Jun Changshao murmured, that's fine too. Plop. Lin Yi knelt down again and said, Disciple Lin Yi greets master. The system was speechless. You're taking in a disciple just like that? That's too hasty. Let's go. Follow me back to the sect. At this point, Jun Changshao looked at the grave and said, Do you have a problem with the person who is pretending to be dead inside? Bang! Suddenly, the grave exploded, and the dead Father Lin jumped out. Did he come back to life? Father? Lin Yi was stunned. Father Lin, who came back to life, hurriedly cupped his hands and said, It's Senior's fate to take my son as a disciple, I naturally have no objections. That's fine. Jun Changshao said, I'll take him away today. Whoosh! After saying that, he disappeared with Lin Yi. Father Lin raised his head and looked at the two streams of light merging into the sky, his hands trembling. What kind of god is this? Chapter 1725. When Lin Yi arrived at the sect of all times, he immediately caused quite a stir because he turned out to be the disciple of the patriarch. Strange. Strange. Su Xiaoma squatted at the entrance of the cafeteria with a bowl of fried rice in his hand. Since he was accepted as the disciple of the patriarch, he should be extraordinary. Indeed. There were countless martial artists in the Lingyuan continent, but only Lin Yi was chosen. Naturally, there was no doubt about his talent. Qingyang. Jun Changshao said, arrange a room for him. Yes. Li Qingyang took Lin Yi to his residence. On the way, he probed with his spiritual senses and found that although this person did not have any martial arts aura, there was a different luster in his eyes, which was obviously different from the ordinary people in the mortal world. Therefore, he thought to himself, this person should not be simple. Because of the title of the disciple of the patriarch, Lin Yi, who had just entered the sect, was arranged to live in an independent courtyard and even had his own cultivation room. Junior brother. Li Qingyang put an introductory manual on the table and a neat school uniform. He said, get used to it for 2 days, and then you can officially start practicing martial arts. Thank you, senior brother. Lin Yi was very polite. However, after Li Qingyang left, his eyes were filled with confusion. Why was Dad still alive? He did not know that his father faked his death to stimulate his fighting spirit. Then, there was no then. Because he was forcibly interrupted by Jun Changshao, everything that had been laid out was completely changed. After taking Lin Yi back to the sect, Jun Changshao was not in a hurry to go out. He asked Elder Wei and the others to speed up the greening and talked with Aunt Wang and the others. Boy. Aunt Wang put a bowl of noodles on the table and said, in recent years, a young man named Yi Feng has been waiting for you. Yi Feng. Jun Changshao picked up the chopsticks and thought back to the past. Big brother, when I grow up, I will definitely go to Yangzhou in the southwest to find you. Boy, I will wait for you. Big brother, my name is Yi Feng. Yi as in maple leaf, Feng as in maple leaf. This conversation came from a conversation that Jun Changshao had with a child after he went to the East Ocean Fishery State and eliminated Emperor Jinwei, who had bewitched the world. So it was him. Jun Changshao smiled and picked up the noodles to eat. When he walked out of the Yunlai Inn, the young man called Yi Feng blocked the door and emotionally exclaimed, Jun Patriarch, you're finally here. Yi Feng. Yes, it's me. Jun Changshao said, back then in Jinwei City, you seemed to be only 3 or 5 years old. I didn't expect you to grow so big. Jun Patriarch still remembers me. Of course, I won't forget our agreement. The so-called agreement was that one of them would come to Yangzhou in the southwest and the other would wait. Although the place was changed to the eternal world, at least it perfectly filled the big hole that the readers could not forget. Plop. At this moment, Yi Feng knelt on the ground and said, Jun Patriarch, please accept me as your disciple. Even if you want to be a menial disciple, it's fine. You have good talent. Jun Changshao nodded and said, you can join. Yi Feng was stunned for a moment, and then said with joy, thank you, Patriarch. These days, many newcomers came to the sect of all times, such as the son of Governor Ku, Lin Yi, and now Yi Feng. In fact, in the upper world, Jun Changshao barely opened the door to recruit disciples. Now that he had inherited the Shenyuan realm, he planned to expand the sect and increase the number of disciples and overall strength. Of course. In the past, he did not recruit disciples because one more disciple meant one more burden. Now he recruited new disciples because the eternal world's heaven and earth attribute was too strong, and he could afford to raise as many disciples as he wanted. My goal is... Standing at the top of the mountain, Jun Changshao had just opened his mouth when the system interrupted, no cavities. Get out. Jun Changshao was rarely serious, but the system became naughty. Whoosh! The eternal ship cut through the universe and continued to fly to other planes. Jun Changshao was a man of action. Every time he passed by a plane, he would pick out talented youths and bring them back to the sect of all times after asking for their opinions. Another newcomer. This is the 99th one. Let's go and welcome them. As the new disciples were accepted into the sect, Su Xiaoma and Li Fei were extremely busy. After all, they had to give the newcomers a lively cultural lesson. Bang! Bang! Happy footballs were frequently shot, and the new disciples were frequently sunk into the wall. They deeply felt the unique culture of the sect of all times and deeply remembered it in their hearts. In half a month, Jun Changshao wandered around the lower realm and went to as many as 100 planes. The number of geniuses he recruited was also more than 1,000, and then they were all handed over to the Ning brothers to be trained. It could be said that those who caught his eye could be called geniuses. Many of them were even more talented than the previous disciples like Li Qingyang. Especially Lin Yi and Yi Feng, the two of them fully proved that the 4 surnames of the web novel were not a joke, they were the real deal. Patriarch. In the main hall, Lu Sinan praised, Lin Yi and Yi Feng, the newcomers, are like 2 pieces of jade that have yet to be carved. The others are not bad either, Gong Sunho said. Recently, when the higher-ups had nothing to do, they liked to secretly observe the new disciples. They found that not only were they extremely talented, but they were also very diligent. They were good seedlings for cultivating the martial path. Jun Changshao said, if they are all handed over to the Ning brothers, I'm afraid they won't be able to handle it. Elders, please help share the burden. Okay. Ryu Sinan and the others agreed. As elders, they were usually quite free. It was not bad to take the time to cultivate moldable geniuses. Jun Changshao said, every year, a competition will be held on Dragon Head Peak. The elders will send their outstanding disciples to compete. The winner will be rewarded handsomely, and the elders' peak will also benefit. Hearing this, Ryu Sinan and the others' eyes lit up. Of course. Those with poor results will be punished together with the elders' peak. They will temporarily clean the toilets for a year. Hearing this, Ryu Sinan and the others were stunned. Do you have any objections? No objections. Then go and select the talents. Jun Changshao added, remember, you can only recruit new disciples. The veteran core disciples like Li Qingyang are not included. As for Lin Yi and Yi Feng, they are naturally considered disciples of Dragon Head Peak. Whoosh! Ryu Sinan and the others in the main hall disappeared. They finally understood why the Patriarch had been crazily recruiting disciples recently. It turned out that they had been too idle in the past, so they had to be busy. That was for sure. The Array Hall and the Forging Hall were busy every day. A group of elders were so idle that their balls hurt. This situation had to be changed. Patriarch Yuan Gongzi said, Hall Master Z has been quite idle recently. I think we can consider letting the Spirit Beast Hall participate in the competition. This way, we can fully mobilize their emotions and the atmosphere of the sect. The elders nurtured their disciples and held a competition every year. The winner would be rewarded, and the loser would be punished. This was his idea. Now, he was pointing the gun at Z. This was simply insane. Achoo! In the Spirit Beast Hall, the Purple King, who was seriously mending his school uniform, sneezed. He rubbed his nose and said vigilantly, I have an ominous premonition. Chapter 1726. As a top sect, they naturally had to have a more complete development system. Yuan Gongzi suggested that the elders lead the disciples to compete on the main peak every once in a while. This was very beneficial in the long run. In fact, the sect of all times had been teaching Wu-Tang for a long time. Old Ding, Old Gu, and the others often came to teach, but because there were too many disciples, it was difficult to achieve excellence. The situation would definitely be different if the elders were to participate in the training of disciples. Each of them would lead a group. Jun Changshao was becoming stronger. The sect of all times would also become more and more formal. After the new rules were announced, the sect suddenly became lively because all the elders were fighting for disciples. It didn't matter whether they won or not. If they lost, they would have to clean the toilets for a year. This was something they didn't want to see. So, they had to pick geniuses, moldable talents. Of course, Ryu Sinan and the others were quite depressed. Lin Yi and Yi Feng, 2 good seedlings, had been snatched away by the Patriarch first. Sigh. Who asked him to be the boss? Who asked him to be in charge of Dragon Head Peak? The elders of the sect of all times entered the battle to snatch disciples. It could be said that 8 immortals crossed the sea, each showing their abilities. In the toilet. A new disciple called Xiao Hai was squatting in the toilet. It had been a few days since he came to the sect of all times. He had gradually adapted and was full of expectations for the future. Xiao Hai. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Xiao Hai looked up in surprise and saw Elder Sun's head poking out from the outer wall. He smiled and said, "Are you interested in becoming a member of Star Gathering Peak?" Jun Changshao had built many peaks in the past. There were Transcendent Peak and Towering Peak for the disciples to live in. There were also peaks number 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, and 3 were just code names. The elders had the right to change them. After Gong Sun Ho moved in, it was changed to Star Gathering Peak. Ryu Sinan and Bailey Qianqiu also changed the names of their peaks. One was called Yearning Peak, the other was called Sorrow Peak. Old Ding, Jiangye, and the others didn't list them one by one. In short, the patriarch didn't restrict their thinking. The names were all based on their personal preferences. Of course. Once the name was set, it could not be changed. It would be passed down forever. Take Star Gathering Peak for example. No matter how many years had passed, no matter how many times the head had changed, every time the first page of the peak's history was opened, the first sentence recorded was First Head Gong Sun Ho. Ah! Little Hai ran out of the latrine while holding his pants. When I went to the cafeteria, he chased after me. When I went to the outhouse, he chased after me. Elder Sun is too scary. What's the situation? Mao Xiaodao, who was carrying a dung bucket, was at a loss. TSK, Jingji, who was carrying a shovel, said faintly, "Stop talking nonsense and get to work." And him. If Mecha number 66 could be passed down for a long time, the descendants of the sect would definitely remember this first-generation pilot and carefully flip through the yellowed operating manual that was left behind. The battle to snatch people was in full swing. In order to recruit a disciple, Gong Sun Ho and Bailey Qianqiu almost spat at each other on the training field. However, Hall Master Z was very calm. He might have received orders from the Patriarch that the Spirit Beast Peak had to participate in the tournament, but he didn't panic at all. Because, he had already instructed his subordinates to consult Mao Xiaodao on how to skillfully clean the latrines. Hall Master. Elder Niu walked in and said, "I heard that it was Yuan Gongzi's suggestion that our Spirit Beast Peak must participate in the Tournament of the Peaks. It's this fellow again." Z stood up in anger. He gathered his strength in his palm and slammed it on the table. Just as he was about to touch the table, he suddenly remembered that this was considered destroying public facilities. If this was known, he would definitely be fined. He immediately used his strength to sweep off the dust on the table and said, "This is too much. Tournament of the Peaks. It is a matter between the various elders. We are just a hall. Why should we participate? Furthermore, the humans are good at nurturing. We beasts don't know anything about it." Z got angrier as he spoke and finally roared. To be honest, it was indeed bullying the Spirit Beast Hall to play a nurturing game with the humans. However, Z could only speak in the hall. When he was facing Jun Changshao earlier, he nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes. The Patriarch is right. Our Spirit Beast Hall will definitely comply and guarantee to complete the mission. The beasts would never be slaves unless they were provided with food and accommodation." This wasn't a joke. It wasn't a joke. Hall Master. Right at this moment, a subordinate came in and reported, "Yuan Gongzi is here to visit." Motherfucker. The Purple King spoke with anger, "He still dares to come. Even if I have to go to the discipline hall to be punished, I will still beat him up until his skin is torn apart." As he spoke, Yuan Gongzi walked in from the outside and asked, "Who is Hall Master Purple going to beat up?" Swish! Z pointed at Elder Niu and spoke with anger, "Beat him up." Elder Niu collapsed. "My king, my Hall Master. Aren't you too quick to follow your heart?" Hall Master Purple. Yuan Gongzi sat down and said, "Your Spirit Beast Hall has been performing well recently. After I reported it, the Patriarch approved to give you an extra 200,000 beast cores. Finishing his words, he placed the interspatial ring on the table. The Purple King's anger was enough to burn the universe, but when he heard the extra beast cores, he immediately smiled and said, "Sorry to trouble you, Yuan Gongzi." It was no wonder that Yi Xingchen liked to run to his bed when he was drunk. It turned out that the two of them had changed the most in the entire sect. It could be said that birds of a feather flocked together. Hall Master Purple. Yuan Gongzi spoke again, "It is a little too difficult for your spirit beast Hall to participate in the Tournament of the Peaks." The Purple King scolded in his heart, "You still know." However, Yuan Gongzi said seriously, "There is only improvement when there is competition, so please be careful." His suggestion to the Patriarch wasn't to deliberately target the Spirit Beast Hall or anyone else. It was just that as the Patriarch, he had to fulfill his responsibilities. For example, the frugality that he proposed in the past had achieved ideal results. In the long run, it had saved a lot of expenses and resources for the sect of all times. Yuan Gongzi didn't do anything wrong. A top sect needed managers like him who knew how to live. If they were all as carefree as Jun Changshao, they could rely on cheats to dominate the world in the short term, but what about the future? To put it in a way that the readers would like to hear, when this book ended, the sect of all times would continue to develop as usual. Whether it would be glorious or declining in the future would depend on the leadership and decision-making ability of the higher-ups. All good things must come to an end. Unless it was a eunuch, a book would eventually end. Therefore, what they could do now was to cherish what they had, and then, see you again. Sigh. Hall Master Purple said bitterly, "Our beast race only knows how to use brute force. How can we nurture talents?" Wrong. Yuan Gongzi said, "The Spirit Beast Hall doesn't need talents, but beast talents." Ah. The Purple King was stunned. Yuan Gongzi leaned over and said, "Since the Patriarch can recruit so many human talents from the lower realm, why doesn't Hall Master Purple recruit beast talents? You have to know that the Sect of All Times' motto is not to blacken the races or regions. As long as you enter the sect, you are brothers and sisters." That makes sense. The Purple King said in realization, "Why didn't I think of that?" The Spirit Beast Hall couldn't nurture human talents, but they could look for beast talents. The universe was so big, and there were so many planes. They could easily choose a considerable number. Swish! Z stood up and said, "I will go and ask the Patriarch now." "Hall Master, can I ask Mao Xiaodao how to clean the latrines?" "Ask my ass." Jun Changshao pondered and said, "There should be worlds in the upper universe that mainly use ores. If we pass by, we can exchange for them with spirit stones." He was only responsible for finding geniuses in the lower realm. As for resources, he had to go to the upper realm. The construction of the city and the development of the sect were all handed over to the relevant people. Jun Changshao returned to Eternal and continued to roam the lower universe. At the same time, he also went to visit some old friends, such as Mo Shangxing of Nine Heavens Continent. Half a month later, the Purple King brought a group of subordinates back and found many chickens, ducks, cows, and sheep. Hall Master Z. Lu Wancher stood in front of the cafeteria and munched on melon seeds while saying, "How did you know that my cafeteria is lacking meat?" The Purple King turned and roared, "They are all beast talents that I have found. They are not ingredients to be eaten." "Oh." Lu Wancher responded and said with a smile, "It'll definitely taste great if you use it to cook." Clang! Ma Yongning pulled out the knife from the chopping board and said, "I will go and slaughter them." Scram 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 scram. The Purple King quickly brought a group of small animals back to Spirit Beast Peak. As he was worried that they would be harmed by the dining hall, he ordered Elder Nyo to completely seal off the place and forbid anyone from entering. Next, the atmosphere of the Spirit Beast Hall changed. In the past, everyone was learning how to sew clothes. Now, they were teaching the small animals. Squat down. Paw. A small poodle sat down with a bone in its mouth and swept its tail on the ground. "Hall Master." Old Nyo frowned and said, although these beasts are very obedient, it will take at least a few years for them to transform into human form just by eating the beast core and absorbing the heaven and earth attributes. When the Everest Grand Competition is held, are we going to send them out? The Purple King wasn't in a good mood and said, if not, who are we going to send? Elder Nyo was silent. When he thought about the day of the Various Peaks tournament, the elders of the various peaks would lead their disciples into the venue while our boss would bring a group of chickens, ducks, cows, and sheep behind them. He couldn't bear to look at the scene and would even laugh his head off. Of course. The Purple King propped up his chin and said seriously, we have to see how the humans nurture their disciples. Perhaps, we might be able to apply what we have learned. Bang! Bang! Star Gathering Peak, Martial Arts Stage. Xiao Hai executed a set of landslide and earth-shattering fist. The fist wind was cold and sharp, and the sound was like thunder. This fist art was exchanged in the middle stage of the lower domain. Now, the new disciples had skipped the rupturing fist, mountain-splitting palm, and other beginner martial skills and had directly mastered it. It was enough to show the benefits of having rich heaven and earth attributes. Of course. His realm was also very fast. Before he entered, Xiao Hai was only at the channel opening stage. In just a few days, he had already broken through to the Martial King realm. Moreover, he didn't take any elixirs to increase his realm. He purely relied on his own comprehension. Therefore, the overall strength of the upper universe came from the strong environment. If the living beings of the lower universe were given the same treatment, they might not fall behind. Not bad, not bad. Gong Sun Ho sat in the armchair and watched his disciple execute the fist art skillfully. His eyes were filled with gratification. This kid didn't waste his time chasing him from the cafeteria to the toilet. He would definitely shine in the first tournament of the various peaks and make Star Gathering Peak proud. In addition to Xiao Hai, he had also recruited many new disciples. Because they were all selected by Jun Changshao from various major planes, their aptitude was absolutely unquestionable. As long as they were guided by a good teacher, they would definitely become the pillars of the second generation of the sect of all times in the future. Who were the first generation? Lu Qianshan, Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others. Even Mao Xiaodao and Jing Ji were classified as first-generation disciples. In other words, counting from the time Lin Yi and Yi Feng joined the sect, those who joined later would be considered second-generation disciples. Do you understand? In the bushes far away, the Purple King transmitted his voice. Elder Nyo looked like he was about to break down. I understand, but it doesn't seem like it can be used on beasts. These two had been squatting in Star Gathering Peak for a long time and had witnessed Gong Sun Ho nurturing his disciples. Sigh. It was difficult for them. Who is it, sneaking around? At this moment, Gong Sun Ho noticed it and looked sharply at the bushes. Retreat. Whoosh. Whoosh. The Purple King and Elder Nyo quickly disappeared. Because they left in a hurry, their school uniforms were torn by tree branches. Their hearts ached so much that they almost cried out loud. Forget it, forget it. They could still wear it for 3 years if they went back and nourished it. In the following days, Z often lurked in Elder Peak and memorized their cultivation methods. When he returned, he would call the members over and brainstorm to discuss the nurturing plan. Tournament of the Various Peaks. He didn't know if the elders were busy, but Hall Master Z was definitely busy. It's too difficult for me. One day, standing on the peak, the Purple King vented his emotions by shouting loudly. In the end, he used too much strength and his newly mended school uniform was torn by his burly muscles. Chapter 1728. Although Z had been having a hard time recently, he had gained something from his hard work. After secretly learning from others, he finally figured out a suitable training method for beast talents. He named it the mental stimulation method. What was the mental stimulation method? It was when he, Old Nyo and the others entered the life and death secret realm and let them follow. Although they couldn't participate in the battle, they could at least witness the whole process. A group of small animals without intelligence and human form suddenly saw an earth-shattering battle and fainted from the stimulation. In short, in order to get results in the peak competition, he didn't have to clean the toilet. Even if there was no scientific basis, Hall Master Z had to try. My brother Z felt more and more like a member of the sect of all times. On the contrary, Ryu Sinan and the others were very comfortable. After recruiting talents, they started a complete set of training methods. It was useless to only have training without resources. Therefore, every time the heads held a meeting in the main hall, the first thing they said was, Yuan Gongzi, can you give some funds to my peak? When Jun Changsha was outside, Rose of Flowers was in charge of the internal affairs and the Patriarch was in charge of the money bag. Leave it to him. Rest assured. The Spirit Beast Hall, which was the most difficult to deal with, was still very obedient. Everyone in the hall was superb at needlework. Even if they went out to be tailors in the future, they wouldn't starve to death. The funds are okay. Yuan Gongzi said, it needs to be assessed for political achievements. Ryu Sinan asked, how? What political achievements? Pa! Yuan Gongzi put a thick book on the table and said, this is the sect's political achievement book that I wrote overnight. It lists in detail how to get political achievements. Everyone's mouth twitched. Writing such a thick book overnight, he must be a monster. The sect's political achievement book recorded things in great detail. For example, disciples of a certain peak could get political achievements by completing certain tasks and then use the political achievements to exchange for corresponding resources. Of course, it would be calculated every year. Whoever had the highest political achievements would get extra rewards. In fact, the sect had always done tasks, but there was no detailed division. Yuan Gongzi listed it all out today, making each peak and hall more professional and busier. The most interesting thing was, there was actually competition for positions. In order to prevent the elders and hall masters from becoming lazy or even inactive over time, if the disciples had the ability, they could replace them through normal means. This, Ryu Sinan and the others felt great pressure. In fact, with their strength, they might not care about the elders, but it was clearly written that the laid-off workers had to clean the latrines regularly. Was this kid fated to be in the latrine? There's the grand competition among the peaks, and there's also competition for positions. Does he feel uncomfortable just because he doesn't want us to snatch Mao Xiaodao's and Jing Zi's jobs? The sect master has already approved. Young Master Yuan said, I hope that everyone will do their best in their respective positions and work together to build a strong and powerful sect with a strong foundation. Although the so-called weak political achievements were a bit harsh, but since he was a member of the Eternal Sect, he should do his best to make it stronger, even until his death. The mission pavilion, which was originally quite spacious, was now filled with disciples from various peaks. They needed to obtain more political achievements for their peaks. Senior brother Li Fei, who was playing football outside the main hall, saw the new disciples doing the tasks enthusiastically and grinned. Fellow disciples who have just entered the sect have a high awareness. I heard that Yuan Gongzi set up a competition for positions. Disciples with strength can challenge the elders. Su Xiaoma said. Li Fei said, other than senior sister and junior brother Yi, who has the strength to challenge the elders? That's true. Su Xiaoma withdrew his distracting thoughts and said, quickly pass the ball over. Okay. The happy football flew over with a stream of light. This long pass could be said to be quite accurate. It was enough to show that Li Fei's footwork had reached the level of perfection. Su Xiaoma seized the opportunity and was about to shoot a volley in the air when he suddenly saw Yuan Gongzi in front of him and laughed. You core disciples also have to compete for positions. Oh my god, I was scared to death. In these years, the core disciples had always been the same group of people. So Yuan Gongzi decided to use them as a starting point. He also added the rules of competition to prevent them from playing football on the martial arts field whenever they had free time. Of course, it was not that they were not allowed to play, but it had to be appropriate. For example, Su Xiaoma and Li Fei had already become obsessed. As long as they finished cultivating, as long as they were stuck in the realm, they would spend most of their time playing football, especially when Lezhong used the sect's culture to welcome the new disciples. Li Fei. A standard single dog. It was understandable that he liked to play football. Su Xiaoma, who had a fiancé, was also often addicted to it. Could it be that the successor of Elder Wei had been influenced by Jun Changshao? Yuan Gongzi had recently worked hard to reform the sect. The results could only be seen in the future. It was hard to deny that his actions were very offensive. He was already isolated by the higher-ups when he was the deputy sect leader of the Demon Emperor's Gate. After all, no one liked to deal with people who did things according to the rules. I'm willing to sacrifice myself. Standing at the peak of the mountain, Yuan Gongzi said proudly, I dare to pull down the emperor. The sect was in full swing. Jun Changshao flew back to the upper realm on the Eternal. During this time, he told the Taishan elder about being followed by the Star Spirit realm. The other party was mobilizing people to study and try to find the GPS location. Whoosh! The battleship cut through the void and descended into the upper realm again. Go to the mountain and sea realm. Beep, the mountain and sea realm has been locked. Moving. After Eternal entered autopilot mode, Jun Changshao returned to the Eternal world. He found rows of flowers and said, let's go to the Soul Mastery realm. The vortex connected to the Imperial Celestial realm was wiped out, but the vortex connected to the Soul Mastery realm still existed. Phew! Rose of Flowers took a deep breath and said, let's go. She had already learned from the Imperial Celestial realm martial artists that she was the lowest level green soul. So she was worried that she would be discriminated against in the Soul Mastery realm. I'm here. Jun Changshao said as they stopped at the vortex. Her husband had been too serious recently, which made Rose of Flowers a little difficult to get used to. If the Soul Mastery realm dares to bully you, I will destroy it directly, Jun Changshao said again. Because he was too serious, the surrounding atmosphere instantly became solemn. Who is it? The system roared, possessed by Go Sheng. The Soul Mastery realm. At the vortex that led to the independent battlefield. At this moment, thousands of martial artists were gathered. Strange. Why can't I go in? It seems to be sealed by a powerful force. Since the appearance of the Black Vortex, the Soul Mastery realm martial artists could easily enter and exit, but now they would be fiercely bounced back. Damn it! There are so many spirit stones. The Imperial Celestial realm must have taken them all. However, they did not know that not only did the Imperial Celestial realm not take them, but even the Black Vortex was wiped out. Buzz! Buzz! At this moment, the vortex that seemed to be sealed by some force trembled slightly. Jun Changshao walked out with rows of flowers. One was handsome and extraordinary, the other was beautiful. They were really a match made in heaven. The Soul Mastery realm martial artists subconsciously looked at the woman and smelled the scent of their race from her aura. They were stunned and said, Green Soul. Chapter 1729. The Soul Control Realm focused on souls. This soul could be considered a certain attribute. It was divided into green soul, blue soul, purple soul, red soul, black soul, gold soul, and so on. In short, it was similar to the spirit roots in the human plane. The thicker the color, the more noble it was. However, the color of the soul was innate and could not be changed. Therefore, in the soul control realm, it was equivalent to dividing the soul into different grades and grades. It could even decide the future of a race. For example, the lowest grade green soul. These soul control race members had no status from birth to death. Being a slave or servant was their only choice. Why was there a need to divide the color of the soul? Because it was directly related to the purity of the bloodline. The higher the level, the easier it would be to cultivate the race's martial arts. Some soul control race members were born superior to others, while others were born as slaves. This was the true portrayal of the soul control realm. This rule had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that the noble souls combined and the offspring they gave birth to were also noble. They could gather resources to make them stronger. The disadvantage was that the lower-ranked spirits would be reduced to supporting characters and serve them from the beginning to the end. Green Soul. When rows of flowers appeared in their field of vision, the soul control realm elites were stunned. The plane had a clear rule that the lower-grade green soul was not allowed to enter the plane battlefield. How did this woman come out? And this man, he's not of my race. As expected. Rows of flowers smiled bitterly. She saw contempt in the eyes of the soul control race martial artist who emitted the same aura. When she came, although she was mentally prepared, she only understood how uncomfortable it was to be looked down upon by her own race after experiencing it for herself. Of course. Rows of flowers came to the soul control realm only to take a look and hope to understand something here. For example, since they were of the same race, why did she and her race live in the lower realm? Brat. One of the elites said coldly, "Our soul control realm's territory is not a place where a filthy human like you can step into as you wish. And you lowly slave." He looked at rows of flowers and scolded, "You're so close to him. Could it be?" Boom! Before he could finish, a fist carrying the weight of 1,000 pounds suddenly landed on his abdomen. The powerful impact forced the martial artist to bend over. He was in so much pain that his eyes almost popped out. Boom! With a loud explosion, he was sent flying thousands of feet away. His entire body sank into the mountain, and a heart-wrenching pain overwhelmed him. Because his thoughts were interrupted, he fainted on the spot. Everything happened too quickly. So much so that when the surrounding soul mastery realm cultivators came back to their senses, they saw Jun Changshao retracting his fist and saying with a cold look in his eyes, "Clean your mouth." Those few words, coupled with the killing intent emanating from his body and the pitch-black vortex, made him seem like a demon that had walked out of hell. "You're courting death." The soul-controlling realm expert was instantly enraged. Purple, red, and other lights erupted one after another as they rushed towards Jun Changshao. Who could tolerate beating up their own people in their own territory? Moreover, a human who walked out of the vortex was definitely a warrior from the Imperial Celestial Realm. Void Soul Finger. Great Seal Art. Hoo. To be able to send his companion flying with a single punch, this child's strength should be extraordinary. Therefore, the elites of the soul mastery realm who were pressuring him did not show any mercy. They used all kinds of martial arts. Because of the different soul colors, the scene was colorful. Scram! Boom. Jun Changshao stood on the spot as the heaven-crossing palm print erupted wildly, sending the dozens of elites of the soul mastery realm flying as if he was swatting flies. This guy's realm was still a half-step celestial realm, but after fusing with the heavenly demon blood, his strength became even stronger. Plop! Dozens of elites of the soul mastery realm fell to the ground neatly. Without exception, all of them fainted because they could not withstand the powerful bombardment. This was still Jun Changshao being merciful, otherwise, they would all be dead. The thousands of soul mastery realm cultivators who were gathered nearby saw their companions being sent flying, and their eyes were filled with horror. This child. His strength was terrifying. Let's go. Jun Changshao glanced at the cultivators present and left with the rows of flowers. Throughout the whole process, no one dared to jump out. After all, wasn't it better to be alive? Who is this guy? How dare he hurt my kind so unscrupulously? It's obvious that he's here to cause trouble. Quickly inform the Guardian Tower. The environment of the Soul Mastery Realm was similar to that of the Imperial Heaven Realm. They were both very suitable for living, with beautiful mountains and clear waters. The only difference was that the attributes of heaven and earth here were mainly soul energy. Even though humans could use it for themselves, they could not refine it. On the way. Rose of Flowers kept her head lowered and did not say anything. That. After a while, she stopped and said, "Let's go back." Why? Because I'm a green soul, I might bring you trouble. Jun Changshao stopped, turned to look at her, and said, "Do you think I'm a person who's afraid of trouble? This guy is too serious." The system said, "I can't take it anymore. I don't want you to be hurt because of me." Rose of Flowers said. Jun Changshao said, "I don't want you to be hurt either, especially in this world that is closely related to you." Rose of Flowers looked at him in shock, her cheeks gradually turning red. Fuck. The system said, "Does the host's EQ automatically increase when he becomes serious?" Swish. Suddenly, Jun Changshao took a big stride forward and pulled her into his embrace. Then, he quickly used a mysterious footwork to bypass her. Boom! As soon as he left, an explosion sounded from the side, and a gust of wind and energy whistled out. After Jun Changshao stabilized his body, he did not look at the deep pit that was blown up in the area where he stood before, but looked up at the sky with cold eyes. TSK TSK. Above, a Soul Mastery Realm powerhouse in brocade clothes stood proudly, golden light gathered in his palm, and said, "No wonder you dare to come to my world to cause trouble, so you have some ability." Obviously. This guy was a noble golden soul. His strength was also not bad, comparable to the upper realm's half-step divine secrets. Jun Changshao put Rose of Flowers down and said, "Stay away." Okay. Rose of Flowers stepped back. However, her heart was sweet as if it was smeared with honey. If it was before, even if she was worried that she would be affected, her words would be to stay away. Kid. That Soul Mastery Realm powerhouse said lightly, "You dare to come to my world with a green soul, may I ask, who gave you the courage?" Clang, suddenly, the sound of a sword being unsheathed rang out. Before he could react, Jun Changshao stood in front of him, the ultimate immortal sword on his neck, and said, "Liang Jingru." Who is Liang Jingru? Rose of Flowers' face was full of question marks. Suddenly, a sword was on his neck, and he did not have time to react at all. This made the Soul Mastery Realm powerhouse dumbfounded, and then calmly raised his hands and said, "Spare me, hero." Rose of Flowers was speechless. Someone who has the same bloodline as me is too cowardly. It's not that he's too cowardly, but that her man is too strong, instantly tying him up. Anyone with a brain knows that the wise choice is to surrender. Jun Changshao did not kill this golden soul, but tied him up and threw him into a nearby cave, saying, "I need to know everything about the Soul Mastery Realm, including the various history and legends of the race." Chapter 1730. Jun Changshao was also very curious about the relationship between the upper universe's spirit mastery race and the lower universe's spirit race. If he wanted to know the inside story, he had to understand their history. Coincidentally, this golden soul powerhouse called Song Dehen was born in a famous family. He had read a lot of books since he was young and could learn a lot of things from them. The spirit mastery realm had a long history of millions of years, and the spirit mastery race was considered one of the top ancient races in the upper universe. The creator was the soul ancestor. It was said that he was very powerful and could swallow the world, the sun, and the moon. The soul ancestor was obsessed with martial arts until he reached the end of his life and got married and had children. After the baptism of time, there were tens of billions of spirit mastery race today. Nonsense. Jun Changshao interrupted. The stronger one's martial arts realm, the more they are punished by the world. How could he have 9 sons in just 100 years? The ancestor once obtained a secret technique that allowed him to give birth at will, ignoring the punishment of the world, Song Dehen said, his eyes full of reverence. The soul ancestor was the same as the demon ancestor, regarded as a high and mighty god in his own race. Speaking of the unlucky demon ancestor, it was quite nostalgic. He wondered if he was doing well in the star spirit realm. I see. Jun Changshao said, "Continue." The 9 sons of the ancestor were all geniuses. While they were giving birth, they actively strengthened the spirit mastery realm and finally became the powerful and prosperous it is today, Song Dehen said. And then? That's all. Clang! Jun Changshao drew his sword and placed it on his neck, saying coldly, "You're not cooperating." Song Dehen was about to cry. Wasn't history supposed to be short and to get to the point? Did he want to hear more details? If that was the case, a few days and nights would not be enough. All these years, did any of our people leave the spirit mastery realm? Rose of Flowers asked. No. But, Song Dehen said, some were expelled. Who? Rose of Flowers asked. Song Dehen was silent for a moment, then said, the Lord of the Ninth Gate, Hua Chenqing. Rose of Flowers looked at Jun Changshao with excitement in her eyes. His surname was Hua, and so was the Lord of the Nine Gates. Furthermore, they were both from the same clan. It couldn't be a coincidence, could it? Where were they banished to? This. I don't know. The history books only record that Hua Chenqing made a mistake and was crippled of his cultivation. He was removed from the Ninth Gate and expelled from the Soul Control Realm along with his family, Song Dehen said. Are there any other records related to this person? Let me think, right? Song Dehen slapped his head and said, I've read in an unofficial history book that Hua Chenqing was the strongest of the Nine Gates at that time. He especially liked to study soul techniques and was known as a junior who was infinitely close to the ancestors. He even put forward a bold idea that there was something even stronger than spirits. What do you mean? In our spirit mastery race, the golden soul is the strongest. Hua Chenqing believes that there is another color above the golden soul. If he can research it, he will definitely have the ability to swallow the heavens, earth, sun, and moon like his ancestor. Of course. There is no record of it in the official history. The source of the news is unofficial, so its authenticity is unknown. Outside the cave, Rose of Flowers walked out thoughtfully. Jun Changshao said, Hua Chenqing should be related to you. I hope so. Because there were almost no records of the ancestors in the Soul Race's continent, even if they had the same surname and race, Rose of Flowers couldn't be sure that they were related, unless she found evidence. Let's go. I'll bring you to the Ninth Gate. Maybe you can find some clues there. The 9 sons of the Soul Ancestor were divided into 9 branches, also known as the 9 Gates. Each gate had a supreme who jointly controlled the spirit mastery world. Of course. Because Hua Chenqing was expelled, the 9th gate had long disappeared from the river of history. However, the ruins where he lived still existed. Big brother. Song Dehen broke down. The 9th gate is listed as a forbidden area. If our clansmen enter, they will be severely punished. If you ask me to lead the way, you're asking me to die. When the sword was placed on his neck again, he said seriously, no problem, I'll lead the way. Like his name, he was very cowardly. The spirit mastery world was very big. However, with Jun Changshao around, even if it was the end of the world, they could quickly reach it. Coincidentally, the 3 of them arrived at the deserted valley where the 9th gate was located. It was late at night. The cold wind whistled and wild beasts roared. The atmosphere was quite eerie. Brother. Song Dehen said weakly, there is a forbidden array at the entrance of the valley. Once you touch it, you will suffer a backlash. His desire to survive was really strong. Calling him brother was not strange at all. Don't look down on him. Such people often lived for a long time. On the contrary, those powerhouses who wanted dignity and were not convinced often either died or were on the way to death. It's not a big problem. Jun Changshao stopped and waved his hand lightly. Swish! Swish! The members of the array hall led by the Taishan old man appeared out of thin air. Although there were only a dozen of them, they were all elites who studied the array of the astral boundary. Damn! Song Dehen's eyes widened. Suddenly, a group of living people jumped out. Then he looked at rows of flowers and laughed in a hoarse voice. Finally, I've been waiting for you. Swish! At this moment, Jun Changshao rushed over, clasped the old man's neck with one hand, and beautifully threw him over his shoulder. Then he raised his foot and madly kicked him. Stop pretending to be a ghost. Boom! 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 Ouch, don't hit. I mean no harm. So, the gray-haired old man said, they will not tolerate the Lord's continued research, let alone the existence of the ninth gate. Sigh. The young man shook his head and said, a bunch of old and rotten people. They only want to be content with the status quo and have no spirit to explore at all. How can they lead our race to prosperity in the future? Forget it, forget it. Those who walk different paths cannot work together. He stood up and said proudly, if the other 8 gates have a problem with my 9th gate, what's the harm in leaving the spirit mastery world? But, as soon as the gray-haired old man opened his mouth, he was interrupted by the young man, no buts. With my understanding of the race, even if we live in the barren land, we can still reproduce and survive. Hearing this, Jun Changshao speculated, so, you live in the soul race continent where birds don't even shit? Rows of Flowers said bitterly, maybe. This ancestor is too fucked up, Jun Changshao said. After being expelled, couldn't they choose a plane with a suitable environment? Why did they have to be placed in the barren land? Could it be that they wanted to temper the resilience of their descendants? Of course. The young man said, they may have a difficult life in the future, but the harsh environment can temper their resilience and prepare for the ascension of the golden soul in the future. Alright. Jun Changshao guessed right. Lord. The old man was puzzled, what is above the golden soul? I don't know. The young man paused for a moment and said, however, what is certain is that this is a bloodline that is comparable to the ancestors. If a descendant inherits it, they can break through the cocoon and become a butterfly, reaching a higher realm. So, I name it the Supreme Thousand Element Soul. Jun Changshao was speechless. He actually used his own name in advance for the soul that had not been successfully studied. Whoosh! At this time, the illusion changed. He and rows of flowers stood in the sky above the city. They saw all the clansmen of the 9th gate carrying their luggage and families gathered on the street as if they were going to migrate. Lord! Where are we going? The young man stood in front of the main hall and said, the lower realm. Why not stay in the upper universe? The Supreme Thousand Element Soul needs to be born from the original universe system. Ah, Kai. You stay in the 9th gate and wait for the descendant to come. Yes. A tall and muscular middle-aged man said. Looking carefully, it was the old man who was beaten up earlier. Sure enough, time was like a flying knife, aging people. The clansmen of the 9th gate left the city. After Hua Qianqing set up various formations, he stood in front of the giant stone that sealed the gate and said, if the descendants of the 9th gate come here one day, they can inherit the Supreme Thousand Element Soul. He was not talking to himself. He was using the projection formation to leave a message in advance for the clansmen who might come in the future. However, Hua Qianqing added, it must be a green soul. Chapter 1732. It had to be a green soul. These words were especially loud and clear. Jun Changshao immediately realized that the so-called thousand-element sovereign soul should be in the city, waiting for a fated person to inherit it. He looked at rows of flowers and said, your opportunity has come. I hope so. Rows of Flowers did not care about Golden Soul. She was more interested in understanding why the soul race was in the lower realms. From the information she had received so far, she was certain that her ancestor, Hua Qianqing, chose to live in the barren land to train her people. Whoosh! Suddenly, the illusion collapsed. Jun Changshao and rows of flowers were still in the hall. In the open space in front of them, a green crystal appeared out of thin air, exuding an aura of vitality. Thousand Element Sovereign Soul. Just as Jun Changshao was guessing, rows of flowers seemed to be summoned by some kind of power. She unconsciously walked forward, reached out her hand through the layers of flowing light, and pressed it against the crystal. Thump! Thump! Her heart beat faster. The flowing light around her gradually enveloped her like vines, resonating with each other. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boundless green energy crazily surged out, spreading through the door into the barren city. This, Song Dehen was stunned. The aura that suddenly appeared clearly belonged to a low-class green soul. Why did it exude a power that made him submit? Thump. The old man knelt, tears streaming down his face. Old master, your great research has finally been inherited by your descendants. The crystal in the hall was the result of Hua Qianqing's countless years of research. At that time, many tests had been done, but no one could inherit it. What research? Song Dehen asked. The old man proudly said, research that surpasses Golden Soul. Song Dehen's eyes widened as he exclaimed, the things recorded in the unofficial history are true? Whoosh! Whoosh! At this time, another powerful aura surged out of the hall. The original green was replaced by blue, purple, red, black, and other colors. They mixed together could be described as a colorful rainbow. Thump! Song Dehen bent his knees and knelt on the ground, lowering his head as a golden soul aristocrat. His eyes were filled with horror and disbelief. The seven-colored light that emerged from it forced him to kneel down and kowtow. Who? Who? The rainbow-colored light filled the city, but it was not satisfied. Then, it rushed out of the valley, and in a short time, the entire soul mastery realm was enveloped. Regardless of whether it was the lowly green soul or the noble golden soul, after feeling the aura, they all knelt in the direction of the ninth door as if they had turned into devout believers. Swish! Swish! At the same time, the powerhouses from the other 8 sects flew out from their respective cities and headed towards the valley at an extremely fast speed. Because of their tyrannical strength, they could ignore the wanton disturbance of the aura, but their expressions were abnormally solemn. That was especially true of the leaders of the 8 clans. They knew about the history of the 8 clans, and the words Hua Qianqing had left behind in front of the many powerful experts in the clan hall. When the holy light descends upon the soul mastery realm, it will lead us to glory, and all of you will submit to it. Many people thought that this guy was just spouting nonsense, so they didn't take it to heart. But today, the holy light suddenly appeared, and the prophecy actually came true. Swish! Swish! A moment later, outside the ninth door's city, the powerhouses from the 8 clans all flew over. They flew in the sky and looked at the main hall where the 7-colored light was gushing out. Their eyes were suffused with a complicated expression. Let's go! The first paragon said in a deep voice. However, when everyone was preparing to move, Jun Changshao flew out from the main hall and landed on the city tower. He said, no one is allowed to enter the city. Humans? Why are they in our soul mastery realm? Humph, don't you know whose territory this is? The powerhouses of the 8 clans were unable to restrain their anger. They were afraid that Hua Qianqing's words would come true, so they couldn't allow any unforeseen events to happen, and they couldn't allow their positions to be shaken. Therefore, they had to enter the main hall to see what was happening inside. Pang! Jun Changshao placed the utmost perfection immortal sword in front of him and placed both hands on it. He said, those who enter will die without a doubt. Impudent! Whoosh! The 8th paragon raised his hand, and golden soul power erupted, turning into a huge palm print that pressed down. Regardless of aura or luster, it was much stronger than Song Dehen. As the inheritor of the soul ancestors' 9 sons, he was definitely the best in the soul mastery realm. Clang! Jun Changshao drew his sword and slashed out with a sharp sword aura. Pht! Wherever the sword light passed, the palm print was torn apart. The 8th paragon retreated a distance, and the anger on his face was replaced by shock. The heavenly soul palm was easily broken by this guy. He was probably as strong as himself. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this time, the seven-colored light that emerged from the main hall became even more intense, making the soul mastery race powerhouses want to kneel down even more. The first paragon shouted, "Everyone, let's go together. We must rush in." Okay. The other paragons responded. In an instant, 8 of the most powerful soul mastery race powerhouses unleashed their cultivation, and their cold eyes locked onto the humans on the city tower. This troublesome fellow had to be dealt with. Ta! Jun Changshao put down the utmost perfection immortal sword, and the tip of the sword touched the ground. He said to himself, "Don't worry about inheriting the opportunity. I will stop all the trouble. Come." He raised his head and said, "Fight." At that moment, Jun Changshao, who was standing on the city tower and facing the 8 top powerhouses of the soul mastery race, became extremely serious. What a joke. He was serious. Serious. He was also serious. Go! The first paragon shouted. The other 7 paragons used dazzling golden martial arts to press down. Because of the sudden explosion of energy, the buildings couldn't withstand it and collapsed. Buzz! Jun Changshao waved his hand, and a materialized barrier covered the main hall. Then, he went forward with his sword. "Oh my god!" Song Dehen exclaimed, "This guy is too fierce. One person fighting the 8 paragons alone." Such a magnificent scene was definitely something that they couldn't even dream of in the past. "Young friend." Ah Kai shouted, "I'll help you." Boom! Before he finished speaking, the first paragon's palm print hit him directly. His whole body sank into the ground with a bang, and then, he vomited blood and fainted. Song Dehen muttered in his heart, "This old man is definitely pretending to be dead." However, what should he do? Song Dehen. Right at this moment, the third paragon roared, "Do it!" Song Dehen stood up, casually picked up a brick from the side, and smashed it against his own head without hesitation. Then, he staggered a few steps back and shouted, "Ah! I can't take it anymore." Plop! He fell to the ground and fainted. The entire process was completed in one go. Song Dehen had experienced Jun Changshao's strength before. Even if he chose to pretend to be dead, he wouldn't make a move. This was the way of survival. Previous chapter next chapter boom. Previous chapter next chapter boom. In the sky outside the city, all sorts of energy exploded like fireworks. The 8 paragons could be considered to have let loose. They didn't know what was going on in the hall, but if they allowed it to continue, they might really have to submit completely. Thus, they had to stop it. However, the human in front of him was like a wall, sealing off all possible paths. Die! Whoosh! A sword light flashed across 19 continents, and the sword energy swept across 30,000 miles. Inside the Great Hall, Rose of Flowers was inheriting the opportunities left behind by her ancestors. Outside the city, Jun Changshao was fighting the 8 paragons alone. They could be said to be the model couple of the upper universe. Chapter 1734. Since the beginning of the Great Space Era, Jun Changshao had obtained a lot of resources after passing through several planes. Especially the Shenyuan realm, which stored a lot of resources. Before Yuan Gongzi decided on the grand competition of the peaks, the higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times were allocated, so they cultivated when they had nothing to do, and their realms improved rapidly. Especially the elders. Relying on resources, almost all of them broke through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm. In the entire upper realm, this level was comparable to Jinrin Tongu and Misato Kitano. They could not eat for free. Today in the soul mastery realm, they came in handy. Comparing numbers. The Sect of all times was not weak either. Comparing strength, everyone in the Sect of all times was a prodigy. Therefore, when the Eight Gates Supremes entangled Jun Changshao and tried to let their clansmen attack the city, they were all killed by Ryu Sinan and the others. Whoever really came would die. In fact, it was only a small part of the Sect of all times' combat power. Core disciples like Lu Qianxian and Yi Xingchen who were not weaker than the elders had not appeared yet. Jun Changshao did not send disciples, but directly sent elders, also to ensure that rows of flowers would not be disturbed in the main hall. Some people might only see the Sect of all times as being pretentious, but from another perspective, it would be for you, I am willing to be the enemy of the world. Level. It was immediately different. Of course, how could a sect compare to a plane? In terms of numbers, they definitely could not compare. Don't forget, there were the Stone Statue clan, the Dragon clan, and other clans in the eternal world. Because it was a family matter, they did not bother others. Even if it escalated to a plain war in the end, they would see who would back down first. All in all, unless faced with a force that was so strong that they could not compete, Jun Changshao and his sect would definitely not refuse, whether it was a one-on-one or a group fight, and would accompany them at any time. On the city tower, Ryu Sinan and the others were posing. That unyielding aura filled the entire city, deeply shocking Song Dehen and the old man who were pretending to be dead. They were too terrifying. Damn it! The Eight Gates Supremes roared powerlessly. They witnessed their subordinates being slaughtered with their own eyes, yet they were unable to help because the human in front of them could easily take on the eight of them. On the surface, it looked like Jun Changshao was surrounded, but in reality, he had the other party surrounded. Boom! Boom! The heaven-crossing palm imprint whizzed out and forced the eight supreme martial artists to retreat. Jun Changshao stood above the city tower and said coldly, "Stand outside the city obediently and wait for your god to descend." He didn't want to kill too many people. If these people were tactful enough to wait quietly, the situation would naturally not develop to the point where it was difficult to mediate. The Eight Gates Supremacy's face was extremely ferocious. At first, they wanted to rush into the main hall of the city to stop the power that was disturbing their minds and forcing them to kneel. Now that so many of their clansmen had died, it had already risen to the level of hatred of killing one's father and stealing one's wife. Everyone. The third gate supreme being said in a low voice, "The situation is dangerous. We can't care about anything else." This seemed to be a secret code, causing the other 7 people to fall into deep thought. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, an even more intense 7-colored light surged out of the main hall, causing them to panic even more. They immediately threw away all their doubts and said in unison, "Come!" Whoosh! Whoosh! The 8 of them gathered together. 2 in front, 2 behind, 2 on the left, 2 on the right. Seeing this, Jun Changshao said with interest, "Are they going to use their trump cards?" Could it be? Song Dehen narrowed his eyes. Seeing the 8 supreme martial artists in formation, he couldn't care less about playing dead and immediately got up and retreated. When he turned around, he realized that the old man was running faster than him. He immediately sped up like a mad dog with his tongue out. Something's wrong. On the city tower, Ryu Sinan frowned. Gong Sunho said, "I'm afraid these people have killer moves." Tisk, the Purple King, said disdainfully, "They're just a bunch of trash. What killer moves can they have? Kid." At this moment, the first gate supreme being said coldly, "This is a matter of the soul mastery realm. Since an outsider like you wants to participate, then leave your life here." Smack! Smack! As soon as he said that, the 8 supreme martial artists raised their hands and placed them on each other's shoulders. Their eyes shone with golden light as they shouted in unison, "Ancestor bless us, 8 gates combine." Whoosh whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! In an instant, golden light flickered outside the city, erupting with powerful energy that mercilessly cut through space. Boom! Boom! Other than the city protected by the Sect of all times, The valley where the ninth gate was located was instantly destroyed. The mountain collapsed and the ground cracked. At the same time, the golden light gradually weakened, and a huge body stood proudly in mid-air. Its skin was golden yellow, and if there was a swastika behind it, it would definitely be the Dharma idol of Buddhism. Hereinafter referred to as Dharma idol, oh my god. After hiding in a safer area, Song Dehen didn't have the mood to lie down and play dead. His eyes widened as he exclaimed, "The ancestor has appeared." The soul ancestor had left behind a bloodline ability called the Nine Gates Combine. Chapter 1735. Jun Changshao despised people who tore their clothes off in a fight because they had the ability to tear their pants off. He never expected that. He actually tore his shirt off when dealing with the golden Dharma form of the Eight Gates. Jun Changshao's muscles were not as exaggerated as Zi's and Xiao Ziji's, but they looked very well proportioned, so they had a high aesthetic value. Of course. This was not the point. The point was that after activating his bloodline, his combat power increased at a terrifying speed. Whoosh! Jun Changshao's eyes were red, as if he was a demon that had awakened from hell. Especially the rolling blood-red aura, even his hair had turned blood-red. Horrifying and scary. Don't ask why such a serious node had hair. Whoosh! Violent power surged wildly, pushing against the big hand and moving upward. How is this possible? The Eight Gates exclaimed. They had combined their supernatural powers and their strength had increased by a level, but they still could not suppress this human. Die! Whoosh! His left hand slammed down on the back of his right hand. Buzz! In an instant, violent energy rippled in midair. Wherever it passed, space collapsed and shattered again. The two forces exploded. Jun Changshao suddenly fell rapidly and landed on the ground with a bang. His feet caved in and his body gradually bent down. After the Eight Gates combined, the golden Dharma form was extremely powerful. It might not have reached the divine secret realm, but it was at least infinitely close. So this battle was a test for him. Kid! You are so arrogant. Jun Changshao resisted the huge palms that were stacked together. Blue veins appeared on his forehead. Then he slowly lifted them up and straightened his back. Die! The Dharma form raised one hand. Under the golden light, it pressed down with violent power again. Boom! The ground cracked and dust flew. Ryu Sinan and Gong Sun Ho frowned. The patriarch might not have been able to withstand the situation just now. However, when the dust settled, they saw that Jun Changshao was still standing in the same place. Next to him was a figure shrouded in colorful light. They could barely see that it was the patriarch's wife. At that moment, Ryu Sinan and Gong Sun Ho then realized that the auras in the palace had stopped and were all gathered around the patriarch. Inherited? Yes. Jun Changshao asked, and rows of flowers answered. The communication style of the two was very simple and unadorned. All right then. Jun Changshao withdrew his hand and said, I'll leave the rest to you. In fact, Rose of Flowers was the one who resisted the palm print. He didn't use any power at all. Could it be that after inheriting the thousand-element sovereign soul, this woman's strength had greatly increased? Could he even deal with the golden Dharma idol with ease? That was not the case. As a matter of fact, the reason why he was able to resist the pressure of the enormous palm was because of the rainbow-colored radiance surrounding his body. The power that deterred the Eight Gate Supremes instantly withered under the pressure. Golden Soul represented nobility in the spirit control world. However, in front of the seven-colored light, he was nothing more than a subordinate facing his superior. This woman, the golden avatar's eyes flashed with monstrous fury. The fused Eight Gate Supremes were very close to Rose of Flowers, and the feeling of being forced to submit grew stronger. Although I'm a descendant of the spirit control race, I'm already married to him. I don't value power, so you don't have to worry that my appearance will shake your position. Enveloped by the rainbow-colored radiance, Rose of Flowers' temperament appeared even more noble. However, when she looked at June Changshao, she showed the gentleness and virtuousness that a wife should have. For Rose of Flowers, the trip to the spirit control world was an opportunity. It was just an opportunity. No matter what she obtained, whether her realm had become stronger or not, she was still this man's wife. If you marry a chicken, you will follow the chicken. If you marry a dog, you will follow the dog. How could she be obsessed with power and status? This was Rose of Flowers' mentality. Therefore, she needed to let the Eight Gate Supremes understand that she had only inherited the opportunity left by her ancestors and then left like a passerby. She wouldn't change the current situation of the spirit control world, nor would she threaten their ruling position. At this point, it was already very clear. However, some people were too obsessed with power and wouldn't believe a word or two casually. Whoosh! Under the joint control of the Eight Gate Supremes, the huge Dharma idol raised its right hand again. Majestic soul power quickly gathered, forming layers of palm prints and pressing down with the power to shake heaven and earth. Anyone could say good things. Only by completely wiping them out could they consolidate their ruling position. It's hopeless, June Changshao said. Whoosh whoosh. The huge palm print carried the power of thousands of kilograms, pressing down like a heavy mountain. Rose of Flowers shook her head and said, "The ancestors were right, these people are too pedantic." June Changshao stopped and said with his back facing her, "So we need to reshuffle and change the situation. The capable will rise and the mediocre will fall. Only then can the race move towards glory." Understood. Rose of Flowers raised her head. Her clear eyes flickered with rainbow-colored radiance. An irresistible aura appeared around her, directly freezing the palm print in midair. Disperse. Bang! With a single word, the huge golden Dharma idol instantly disintegrated. The Eight Gate Supremes flew out in a sorry state. Damn! Gong Sun Ho said in shock, "Words of law. How? How is this possible?" The First Gate Supremes clutched his chest, his eyes filled with shock. Just now, he could clearly feel an irresistible force entering his sea of consciousness, forcefully severing his connection with the other 7 people. This was definitely not a suppression of realm and strength. It was very likely a suppression of bloodline. Vaguely, the Eight Gate Supremes recalled what Hua Qianqing had said back then. Only then did he truly realize that the holy light had descended upon the soul mastery realm. He really had to submit. On account of being of the same race. Rose of Flowers floated in the air with rainbow-colored holy light and said, "I'll spare your lives. As for the Eight Gate Supremes, from today onwards, you will become history. Whether it's green soul or golden soul, you will all be treated equally." The voice spread throughout the soul mastery realm. The soul mastery race martial artists all kowtowed, the reverence in their hearts growing stronger. The battle between June Changshao and the Eight Gate Supremes was announced to have ended. Unfortunately, because of the appearance of Rose of Flowers, there was no victor. However, one thing was certain. It was very difficult for June Changshao, who relied solely on his bloodline, to instantly kill a powerhouse who was infinitely close to the divine secret realm. This was only a world that was slightly stronger than the upper realm. If he were to encounter a true second-class or first-class powerhouse, he was afraid. No problem, cheating. The sovereign thousand-walking soul left behind by my ancestor can reverse the bloodline that has not changed for a long time. I need to stay here for a while. Rose of Flowers landed on the city tower, her nobility weakened quite a bit. Outside, she was the empress. At home, she was the wife. "I'll wait for you." Although June Changshao was eager to find his life and death brother, it didn't matter if it took a year or 2. Whoosh! Rose of Flowers waved her hand, and the rainbow-colored holy light enveloped the Eight Gate Supremes as they flew towards the most lively city in the soul mastery realm. Next, she planned to popularize her ancestors' research on a large scale, thus changing the situation where green soul must be of a low level and golden soul must be of a noble. Patriarch. The Purple King walked over and said weakly, Yuan Gongzi has a rule that you are not allowed to tear your clothes off in a fight. As the Patriarch, you have already made an exception. Can my spirit beast haul, bang? Whoosh! Ryu Sinan, Gong Sun Ho, and the others raised their heads and saw the Purple Hull Master flying towards the sky, turning into the most dazzling star. Why did you mention it? Beast talent. Chapter 1736. The product that Hua Qianxing researched back then could be said to be epic-making, because he added a more supreme soul to the golden soul. From the luster, it was temporarily defined as a colored soul. Of course. His original intention was not to create a new soul system that was above all living beings, but he hoped to change the rule of the race that had been based on the soul for many years. The clansmen could not be divided into lowly and noble at birth, they had the right to be respected and become strong. From Jun Changxiao's point of view, Hua Qianxing's move was great. Although Rose of Flowers, who inherited the colored soul, was married to a dog, she still had to complete the mission left by her ancestors, and work hard to improve the situation of the soul control world. First of all, she removed the status of the 8 gates in the soul control world, and removed the rule that the golden soul was superior and the green soul was a slave. As long as the clansmen could cultivate martial arts, they had the right to obtain resources. This could only change the rule, but it could not change the difficulty of low-level soul system cultivation, so Rose of Flowers advocated that the clansmen could work hard to achieve their will. In fact, the green soul was not bad, at least it could be used as a support. If it combined with other soul systems, both sides would definitely benefit. However, the soul control world had always advocated the golden soul and despised the green soul. How could they agree to let low-level soul systems support themselves? Until the 8 gates were removed, until there was no distinction between the noble and the lowly, this kind of complementary situation gradually appeared, and many clansmen realized that it was actually very cool to have the green soul support. The monsters that could not be defeated before could be easily solved with the green soul support, and the dungeons that could not be defeated before could be easily cleared with the green soul support, and even with the help of the green soul, alchemy and forging would be twice the result with half the effort. If the soul ancestor was in heaven, he would definitely be very pleased. Because, his purpose of creating different soul systems was to hope that future generations could cooperate with each other, and not treat each other differently. A bit interesting. Standing on the peak of the mountain, Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. During this time, Rose of Flowers was improving the situation of the soul control world, and he had been watching as a bystander, witnessing the special effect of the green soul and other soul systems. If this clan was taken into the eternal world, and various soul systems were used to complement the disciples, would it increase their combat power? A support for each person, the picture was unimaginable. It might take 2 or 3 years. Rose of Flowers walked over. She had been dealing with the clan's affairs, and she looked a little tired. I'll help you. Jun Changxiao. How? Hua Meigui joked, put them all into the eternal world. Yes. Rose of Flowers looked at him. Because the soul system in the way of the world in eternal world in the world, of the god, of time. Jun Chang said with a smile, the eternal world doesn't lack places for the soul mastery tribe. What's more, the soul mastery tribe and the soul mastery tribe are family. My husband is so good to me. Hua Meili smiled. When Jun Changxiao took all the members of the soul mastery race into the eternal world and chose Li Qingyang and the others to merge with, she finally understood his real intention. Of course. Flower Rose said helplessly, I thought too much. In the sect of all times. Li Qingyang and a soul mastery warrior were sitting cross-legged in the martial arts practice field. Jun Changxiao said, let's begin. Okay. Li Qingyang closed his eyes and relaxed his mind. The soul mastery warrior sitting next to him turned into a green attribute and merged into his meridians and blood. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, the green attribute filled the surroundings. After it gradually weakened, Li Qingyang's hair and eyebrows were all green. Second senior brother. Su Xiaomo exclaimed, "It's green." Swish! At this moment, Li Qingyang leaped up and hovered in the air. His right hand suddenly pressed down and he shouted, "Heaven-crossing palm print." Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Several palms were thrown out in succession, and the power was extraordinary. Damn! Su Xiaoma and Li Fei said in surprise, "So strong?" They had a better understanding of second senior brother's strength. Now that he was supported by Green Soul, the heaven-crossing palm print was obviously at least 20% stronger than before. Ta! Li Qingyang landed on the ground. Green aura shrouded him and he looked extraordinarily mighty. Not bad. Jun Changshao smiled in satisfaction. His previous guess was right. With the support of the Soul Mastery race, it could indeed increase the overall strength of the disciples. Of course. Different soul types had different effects. For example, although Green Soul, which had merged with Li Qingyang, increased his strength by quite a bit, it strengthened his eukaryotic energy and allowed him to use the heaven-crossing palm print more frequently. There was also Purple Soul and Red Soul. He had to test them one by one to find out. Xingqian, step out. Ta! Yi Xingqian stepped out. Although he looked calm, he was actually a little excited. After all, he could increase his strength after merging. At this time, a Soul Mastery race warrior walked onto the training field. It was none other than Song Dehen, who had pretended to be dead the entire time at the 9th gate. Ha ha! He grinned and said, "Please excuse me." Seeing that this guy was smiling so timidly, Yi Xingqian immediately frowned. Fuse. Hoo. Song Dehen was a golden soul, so he turned into a golden light and merged into Yi Xingqian's body. When the special effect dissipated, the latter's hair turned golden, and he had properly transformed into a Super Saiyan. Previous chapter next chapter boom. Previous chapter next chapter boom. Night Emperor stood on the spot and punched a few times, excitement appearing on his face. After merging, his strength increased by at least 50%. However, the consumption of the power of true spirit was also much faster than before. From this, it could be seen that the Golden Soul's characteristic was to increase a warrior's battle power to the extreme, but at the same time, it would consume energy. It could be said to be a double-edged sword. In terms of personality, Li Qingyang, who sought stability, would definitely choose the Green Soul. Yi Xingqian, who advocated strength, would naturally choose the Golden Soul. Next, he tested the Purple Soul, Red Soul, and so on. Some increased defense, some increased speed, some strengthened soul, some strengthened pills, and some forged techniques. It could be said that he had everything. I can see it now. Jun Changshao said, "Your soul mastery race was born to assist our sect of all times." The sect did not lack talents. What they lacked was someone who could help them reach the next level. Rose of Flowers was speechless. Of course, she did not object to her people assisting the sect, nor did she care about her husband's real intention of taking them in. After all, placing them in the eternal world was a huge benefit in itself. Life and Death's Secret Realm. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, Yi Xingqian, and the other core disciples stood proudly. Beside them stood a soul mastery race warrior. "Did you bring enough pills?" "I brought enough." "Did you bring the fried rice talisman?" "I brought it." "All right, let's go." After everything was ready, everyone stepped into the life and death secret realm. Then, a deep voice resounded through the sky, core disciples Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and 10 others, choose hell mode. Damn! Li Tian said in shock, senior brothers are challenging hell mode. Is this reclamation? Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the study, laughed. The life and death secret realm at the back of the mountain was a high level. Until now, no disciple had passed the hell mode. With the help of the soul mastery race, it should not be a big problem. A big problem. Li Qingyang and the others had just entered for a few minutes when the core of the reclamation team, Yi Xingqian, was sent out. He grabbed Song Dehen, who was also sent out, and roared, "Why the fuck are you running? I'm scared." Chapter 1737. Ta! Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others arrived at Life and Death's secret realm. Because they had chosen Hell mode, the environment was very dark and depressing. Even the wind that blew was like the howling of ghosts. "Let's eat." Shwa! Shwa! Everyone sat down and took out Lu Wancher's fried rice to eat. If Hell mode was compared to a dungeon, then they were now buffing their status. Of course. What kind of food was eaten for each class? For example, Xiao Ziji, the main tank of the exploration team, was eating chicken stewed with mushrooms. This was Lu Wancher's latest research, and its effect was to increase defense. Yi Xingqian was eating spicy fish head. There was only one mission, which was to attack crazily when the team was formed. "Come." After eating, Yi Xingqian looked at Song Dehen and said, "Let's fuse." The food only slightly increased their status. The ones who dared to challenge Hell mode in high-rank Life and Death's secret realm were still supported by the Spirit Mastery race. "Oh." Song Dehen responded, then turned into a golden light and fused with it. At the same time, the other Spirit Mastery race who followed in also fused with Li Qingyang and the others, and all aspects of them improved significantly. Shwa! Xiao Ziji activated the special effect of the text, and his whole body was covered by the mech. He placed the streamer's shield in front of him and said, "I'm going. Go." Ta ta ta. Xiao Zuiji charged forward, and as soon as he left the safe zone, numerous ferocious-looking giant demon beasts suddenly condensed in the dark void in front of him. Judging from their auras alone, they were at least at the upper level of the truth-seeking realm. As everyone knew, dungeons were made up of bosses and small monsters. And the beasts that appeared at this moment were at most small monsters. Shwa! Xiao Zuiji rushed over and waved his right arm. The flowing light shield flew out and hit a demonic beast, then bounced off to another demonic beast. Soon, he had attracted the hatred of dozens of demonic beasts. Roar! Roar! The beasts roared and attacked. Pang! Xiao Ziji grabbed the rebounded streamer shield and placed it in front of him. Light instantly covered his whole body, turning into an even bigger shield. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Dozens of demonic beasts used their bodies to crazily charge forward. Although their strength was extremely strong, they were unable to move the slightest bit. During this time, Li Qingyang, Yi Xingqian, and the others did not make a move. This was because they were waiting for Xiao Ziji to stabilize the aggro. This was to prevent them from going OT if they went OT. It's about time. A few seconds later, Li Qingyang said, "Go." Shwa! Shwa! The golden-haired Yi Xingqian was the first to rush over. He had already formed the hand seals for the heaven-crossing palm. As the main damage dealer of the first clear team, what he needed to do now was to kill all the small monsters while Xiao Ziji was tanking the monsters. This was a test of the coordination between the tank and the DPS. However, the two of them, one attacking and one defending, already had an absolute tacit understanding. Naturally, there wouldn't be any problems. Heaven crossing palm print. At this moment, before Yi Xingqian arrived, two palm prints had already arrived. Although there weren't many of them, they were far more powerful than before with the support of the status and golden soul. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the two palm prints fiercely pressed down on the monsters that were gathered together. If they had HP, they would have been reduced by more than half. If the damage was displayed, the screen would be filled with Arabic numbers at this moment. Amazing! Su Xiaoma said. Roar! Roar! The demonic beasts that had suffered heavy attacks circled around Xiao Zuiji and charged towards Yi Xingqian. The stronger the damage dealer, the easier it was to OT. Junior brother. Be careful. Yi Xingqian ignored Li Qingyang's reminder and stood proudly on the spot. The corner of his mouth raised in disdain. A bunch of trash. With the support of the Golden Soul, he felt extremely powerful. With a few more palm strikes, this group of monsters, swish. Suddenly, the golden power in his body receded like the tide. Song Dehen jumped out of Yi Xingqian's body and stepped back with his long legs. Without the support of the soul power, Night Emperor's hair and eyebrows not only returned to their original state, but he was also stunned on the spot. He actually ran away. Roar! Dozens of monsters with low HP rushed over like monstrous waves enveloping a small boat in the storm. At this critical moment, Yi Xingqian said, "Fuck, boom. Boom." Dozens of forces pressed down and Night Emperor's body suddenly shattered into nothingness. He was also sent out of the life and death secret realm. Song Dehen was also sent out because of the fusion of the two and attracted all the hatred. Swish! Swish! Not long after, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji and the others were also eliminated. The whole family was lying on the ground in an orderly manner, all paralyzed. At this point, the core disciples had failed. The culprit that caused the team to be wiped out was naturally Song Dehen. The next day, Yi Xingqian came to the study and said, "Disciple applies for soul swap. That guy called Song Dehen was so cowardly. If I fused with him, it would be a disgrace to my name as Night Emperor." Jun Changshao said, "Song Dehen just entered the sect and hasn't experienced many facilities. It's normal for him to back out in hell mode. As his partner, I should help him overcome his fear." Good luck, you can do it." Yi Xingqian collapsed. The patriarch didn't plan to swap his soul and wanted him to help him. Good. Good. This emperor will definitely train him into an iron-blooded man. Training room. Song Dehen took a step forward and then walked in very carefully. Yi Xingqian, who was following behind, saw his cowardice and almost couldn't help but kick his butt. "Senior brother." Song Dehen said weakly, "Why did you bring me here?" "Physical training." Yi Xingqian walked to the front of the room and said, "Go in." Although Song Dehen was cowardly, he was very vigilant. He hurriedly covered his stomach and said, "Oh, no. My stomach hurts, I have to go to the toilet." Swoosh. Yi Xingqian was afraid that he would run away, so he grabbed his collar and stuffed him in. Bang! The door closed and the time was set. At first, Night Emperor set 20 hours, but he felt that the difficulty was not high enough, so he went back to the training room and reset it. Creak. Not long after, the training room door on the left opened. Woody came out and heard a scream. He subconsciously looked back and saw that the training time was 84 hours. He widened his eyes and said, "So fierce." Ah ah ah. Ah ah ah. Screams sounded in the training room. It was night. Woody sat alone on the mountain peak. Since entering the eternal world, this last disciple had very little screen time because he focused all his attention on cultivation. To the sect of all times, a first-class plane meant nothing more than a better cultivation environment. To him, it meant a lot because his attributes barely met the requirements and he could cultivate some advanced martial arts. I have comprehended 30% of 9 Dragons Split Palm. I have comprehended 20% of Heaven and Earth Transformation. These 2 martial arts should be enough to deal with a half-step celestial realm. If I can master them, who in the upper universe can be my enemy? Woody lay on a rock and looked at the starry sky. He said to himself, "The patriarch is a man with aspirations. He should be on the road to immortality. When that time comes, I can go home." Yi Xingqian's story was known by the whole sect. No one knew his story until now. Of course. Unlike Yi Xingqian's arrogance, Woody had been very low-key since he entered the sect, as if he did not exist. Even when Yuan Gongzi said that disciples could challenge elders, Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others did not think of him immediately. This was exactly what he wanted. Because he did not like to be high-profile, he preferred to live in the cruel world. If not for the seven-colored light, this brother would have continued to live in seclusion. He did not want to achieve anything, only to achieve the level of the seven profound sage. Chapter 1738. The addition of the Spirit Mastery race had greatly increased the overall strength of the sect of all times. It had also given the core disciples the courage to challenge hell-level secret realms. Of course, there were too few secret realms now. Hence, Jun Changshao was thinking of finding a time to refresh the store and see if he could get more dungeons. Bah! The system said, "You're not looking for a time. You're waiting for the three values." This also means that I'm less reliant on the store, Jun Changshao said. He refreshed the store when he couldn't get over the hurdles in the past. He refreshed the store when he encountered dangers in the past. Leaving the upper realm to roam the universe was something that had never happened before. Self-improvement. Jun Changshao's pursuit. Alright. The system said, the fleet of the astral spirit realm that chased us earlier. Don't empty the three values if you can. I just don't want to waste time, Jun Changshao explained. When the falling star continent was destroyed, he only wanted to wipe out all the enemies. Hence, he went to the extreme of emptying the three values. Under normal circumstances, there would be many ways to solve it. Jun Changshao did not want to get rid of the system's assistance. He just wanted to rely on himself as much as possible. If he could not, he could only cheat. After all, as a protagonist with good morals, he had to show the readers that he had been working hard and never slacking off. In the vast universe, Eternal flew at high speed, dragging a stream of light behind it. With the vast resources of the Eternal world as his backing, there was no need to go to other planes. He expected to reach the mountain and sea realms soon. Because it was in autopilot mode, Jun Changshao spent more time in the sect taking care of internal affairs. He often sat in front of Gu Zhaoxi's grave with a bowl of wine and a plate of peanuts and drank until he was drunk. Brother, you and I have met to roam the universe. Every time he thought of Gu Zhaoxi sacrificing himself for him and the sect, Jun Changshao felt like a knife was being twisted in his heart. Hence, he went to the mountain and sea realm to find his brother and swear that he would not let him be the bomber again. Core disciples Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and 10 others choose hell mode. At this moment, a loud and clear voice sounded from the back of the mountain. After resting for a couple of days, Li Qingyang and the others started to challenge the life and death secret realm again. This time, they had made ample preparations. Not only were there core disciples, but there was also eldest senior sister Lu Qianqian, last disciple He Wudi, and sword Dao genius Zhou Hong, who had not shown up for a long time. If they wanted to attack, they would attack. He had to be in control. As long as he didn't make any mistakes, there shouldn't be any problems. Shua! After entering the dungeon, Yixingchen grabbed Song Dehen's collar and said angrily, "No matter what danger we encounter, we must face it fearlessly. This is the first principle of the sect of all times. Do you understand?" Su Xiaoma muttered, "That's not the first principle." Ming, Song Dehen said in horror, understood. He had been trained by Yixingchen for the past few days, and his life was worse than death. As for whether it was effective, it would have to be seen in actual combat. Eldest senior sister. Can we start? Li Qingyang was always the second disciple in the sect, so he naturally had to ask the eldest senior sister before entering the hell-level dungeon. Xiao. At this moment, Lu Qianqian flew out of the safe zone and landed lightly in the monster area like a fairy. The ground under her feet quickly froze and spread out. Roar! Roar! The secret realm was instantly activated, and dozens of monsters appeared. Alright. Li Qingyang was speechless. Junior brother Yi was already reckless enough, but the eldest senior sister was even more reckless. The second expedition was a bit dangerous. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. At this moment, wherever the layer of ice passed, the demonic beasts that had just appeared were all frozen, turning into lifelike ice sculptures. Even the gloomy atmosphere in the surroundings seemed to have been frozen. So cold. Su Xiaoma hugged her shoulders and shivered from the cold. Clang, beside him, Zhou Hong unsheathed his sword. He and the scabbard flew out at the same time. When the tip of the sword touched the ground, he used the force to rise into the air again and then hung above the frozen monsters. He said, Jinghong, return. Xiao. The sharp sword swept down from top to bottom, and the flickering light illuminated the dark environment. Swoosh! Zhou Hong landed behind Lu Qianqian and inserted his 3-foot-long sword into the scabbard that flew over and stood vertically at his feet. From unsheathing to sheathing, it was worthy of the heavenly fairy. Caw! Caw! At this moment, the ice layer broke. Poochie! Poochie! The heads of dozens of monsters were all broken. Their huge bodies collapsed and then turned into flowing light and disappeared. Li Qingyang was stunned. That's it? Roar! At the same time, another furious roar came from afar. A giant clad in battle armor appeared, holding a broken mountain-splitting axe in his hand. Regardless of the difficulty, there were a total of 3 stages in the life and death secret realm. In Hell mode, each stage had a boss, so to enter the second stage, they had to kill it. Junior brother Yi. Li Qingyang shouted, Go! Xiao Zuiji rushed over with large strides. He was fully armed as he moved, and the flowing light shield was already in front of him. Su Xiaoma and the others were not idle either. While the tank was pulling the boss's aggro, they went around in different directions, ready to attack at any time. Because of Song Dehen's support, although Yi Xingqian rushed over, he was afraid of being betrayed, so he was very cautious and even a little scared. Boom! Xiao Ziji took the lead and swung the flowing light shield at the giant's head. Then, he stood up and used shield dance, dealing a series of damage, firmly pulling the boss's aggro. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others acted according to the situation. They used all kinds of martial arts, and damage numbers filled the screen. Yi Xingqian also went up. However, he was just slacking the whole time. As the main damage dealer, he could deal 200% damage, but now he only dealt 50%. Unfortunately, there was no aggro table or damage table. Otherwise, Yi Xingqian would definitely be second to last. Who was last? Without a doubt, it was He Wudi. As the most cautious person, in this situation, he would save as much energy as he could and slack as much as he could. Anyway, he looked very serious. Who knew if he could deal any damage? The first stage's boss was not difficult. As long as Xiao Ziji kept the boss's aggro and the core disciples kept attacking from the side, they could easily kill it. Roar! An hour later, with an unwilling roar, the armored giant knelt on the ground in pain and gradually turned into fluorescent light. At this point, the first kill of the first stage's boss in Hell mode was taken by the core disciples of the Sect of all times. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, the dispersed fluorescent light merged into the bodies of every participant, bringing them extremely rich profound meaning of heaven and earth, which was also known as experience points. So good! Su Xiaoma closed his eyes and quietly felt the harvest. These experience points could not help him peek into the peak of the truth-seeking realm, but he had a deeper understanding of martial arts. When the time came for a breakthrough, he would definitely be able to break through the bottleneck better. Buzz! After a while, everyone was sent to the second stage. Hell mode would definitely get harder as they progressed, so Lu Qianqian also acted cautiously and did not recklessly rush out of the safe zone. Chapter 1739. Next. Li Qingyang and the others entered the second level. Because of Lu Qianqian and Zhou Hong, the two control and output, clearing the small monsters was particularly easy. Soon, they fought the boss again. It was also a giant wearing armor, but it was riding a mount. When it fought, it would also help its master shootout skills. In a moment of carelessness, the whole team was wiped out. Damn it! Before the weakness came, Yi Xingqian angrily grabbed Song Dehen and roared, "How could I partner with you? Big brother, this time, it's not my fault." Indeed. He didn't blame him. However, since Yi Xingqian had entered the life and death secret realm, he had been too cautious and cautious. Therefore, he could only vent his anger on Yi Xingqian. In short, he needed someone to take the blame. "It's okay." Li Qingyang comforted, "Come again next time." The life and death secret realm wouldn't kill people. At most, they would be weak for a period of time. At most, they would come a few more times. As long as they were familiar with the boss and understood its attack mechanism, it would only be a matter of time before they defeated it. Sure enough. In the following month, everyone went to challenge it as soon as they recovered. Although they died several times in front of the second-level boss, their hard work paid off. They finally succeeded in finding the attack mechanism and defeated it in 2 hours. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. Su Xiaoma, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, was enveloped by the fluorescent light. Immediately, a majestic aura of advancement surged, and he excitedly said, "I'm going to break through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm." After defeating the first boss, he was still far from the breakthrough. After defeating the second boss, he directly broke through on the spot. This was the generous reward given by the Hell mode. "I'm almost there too," Li Fei said. He and Su Xiaoma were not as monstrous as Yi Xingqian and the others. Their realms were still stuck at the upper level of the truth-seeking realm. Actually, the disciples who were able to reach the upper level were already ranked highly in the sect of all times. Even elders like Ryu Sinan were only at the peak of the Seeker realm. It could be said that there was a huge gap between the truth-seeking realm and the heavenly secret realm. Currently, only Jun Changshao had managed to do so. Even the Rose of Flowers who had inherited the thousand-walking sovereign spirit was only at the peak of the heavenly secret realm. Plop! Plop! In the third stage's boss area, Xiao Ziji and Su Xiaoma fell to the ground. Both of them were heavily injured and in critical condition. Seeing this, Li Qingyang thought, "It's over again." After defeating the boss of the second stage, they had come to challenge the boss of the third stage 10 times. Every time, they would be wiped out at this critical juncture. There was no way they could do anything about it. Roar! A furious roar rang out. A snake beast with 9 heads rushed out and spat out toxin-like energy at everyone present. Li Qingyang and the others shrugged their shoulders helplessly. They had experienced this familiar scene more than 10 times. "Be careful." At this moment, Xiao Ziji rushed over with his shield, condensing his last defense in front of everyone. As the main tank of the team, even if he was left with his last drop of HP, he had to stand in front of his teammates fearlessly to shield them from the wind and rain. Boom! The toxic energy sputtered and quickly corroded the flowing light shield. Xiao Ziji's HP bar was also emptied, and then he turned into a stream of light under everyone's gaze. Bang! Bang! Without the tank's protection, Li Qingyang and the others were eliminated one after another. This time, the team was wiped out just like last time. They had no way to fight back. Even the prying mechanism could not be avoided. Outside the secret realm, Xiao Ziji said weakly, "We can't beat it." Sigh. Li Qingyang said, "Let's stop here for now. When everyone is stronger, we can challenge it again." Second senior brother. Su Xiaoma clenched his fists and said, "How can I not be satisfied?" After spending so much time, they had finally reached the final boss. If they gave up and waited for the cooldown to reset, it would be unacceptable for these people who wanted to be strong. On the contrary, Night Emperor was very calm. Because of Song Dehen's existence, he didn't do much. Of course, even if he used all his strength, he wouldn't be able to beat it because the third stage was too difficult. Let's go. Li Qingyang tried his best to stand up and said, after the side effects disappear, everyone will cultivate diligently. Sooner or later, we will be able to pass this stage. Although Su Xiaoma and the others were unwilling, their strength did not allow them to repeatedly challenge it, so they could only leave dejectedly. I think so. At this moment, a voice came from behind, you can challenge it again. Li Qingyang and the others stopped and turned their heads to look at Hiwudi. Junior brother. Su Xiaoma said bitterly, we were completely crushed by the snake beast. Even if we go, we will be sending ourselves to death. Trust me. Hiwudi said with a serious gaze, challenge it again. Junior brother Guan Meng, who had always been quiet and insignificant, suddenly had a serious expression. This made everyone a little uncomfortable. That's right. Yi Xingchen stood up and said, our sect of all times never gives up easily. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma were silent. 7 days later. Lu Qianqian said, gather here. Okay. Since the great senior sister had spoken, even if they knew that they would fail, they still decided to challenge it again. Jun Changshao, who was sitting on the mountain peak, took a bite of a cucumber and said to himself while chewing, I am proud of you all. Never give up easily. This was the spirit of the sect of all times. 7 days later. Li Qingyang and the others gathered in front of the life and death secret realm again. Let's go. Go in. Everyone merged into the whirlpool without hesitation. Because the bosses in the first 2 stages had been defeated, they were directly sent to the 3rd stage to face the hydra that crawled out of the void. Formation. Li Qingyang shouted. Wang! 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 Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and the others activated the text effect and entered the most serious battle state. Yi Xingchen, who had been slacking, also put on his armor and summoned his Fangtian halberd. Ta! Just as everyone was rubbing their palms, Hiwudi walked out first and faced the hydra. With his back facing everyone, he said, leave it to me. Whoosh whoosh. A sudden wind blew in the secret realm and blew away the messy hair on his forehead, revealing his sharp face. To slack off, Yi Xingchen could only be considered a younger brother in front of Hiwudi. However, he decided to be serious about today's challenge. Not for anything else, but because before they were wiped out last time, Xiao Ziji still risked his life to take the damage for him even though he knew that they were going to lose. Slack. It was for the sake of living a better life. Hiwudi couldn't choose to give up and ignore everything because he had joined the sect of all times for so long that his mentality had changed. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, his body was surrounded by an extremely majestic true spirit power. Lu Qianqian and Yi Xingchen were stunned. Both of them could clearly feel that the other party's martial Dao aura was gradually rising. His strength was probably not above theirs. It was above theirs. Step back. Hiwudi raised one hand. These words were unnecessary because Li Qingyang and the others had already hidden in the distance and were silently cheering for him. Roar! Roar! At this moment, the hydra locked onto Hiwudi and opened its 9 bloody mouths to charge at him. Whoosh whoosh! A gloomy aura erupted, making people shudder. Swoosh! Hiwudi assumed a posture similar to sect leader Qiao's 18 dragons subduing palms. He quickly formed some kind of hand seal and blasted it into the void, saying, 9 dragons splitting palm. Roar! Roar! In an instant, the surrounding majestic true spirit power turned into 9 roaring dragon beasts and pounced over with a momentum that shook the space. There was no need to describe the scene. Just from the wide eyes of Li Qingyang and the others, one could guess that it must be a spectacular scene with full special effects. Even if Jun Changshao was here, he would probably be stunned. If one had to describe it, every battle that they had experienced before, every martial art that they had used, was overshadowed by the appearance of the 9 dragons, including Gu Tianqing, Gu Shenyuan, Puqi, Puqi, The power of the 9 dragons wrapped around the Hydra and turned into blades that mercilessly tore it apart. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. It was a tragic sight. A moment later, everything returned to normal. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were still dumbstruck. As for the snake beast that had killed him 10 times, it had already been split into pieces and then gradually turned into fluorescent light that filled the sky. Instant kill. Phew. He Woody retracted his palm and spat out a mouthful of turbid air, secretly saying, "I haven't used it for a long time, I'm a bit rusty." Outside. When the Hydra was erased, a heavy voice resounded throughout the sect. Congratulations to the core disciples Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others for successfully passing the Hell mode. Chapter 1740. The heavy voice resounded throughout the sect of all times, and all the disciples heard it clearly. Cleared. That's the Hell mode, as expected of senior brother. Many disciples were generally stuck in the normal and hard modes, but the core disciples directly cleared the Hell mode, which naturally caused a heated discussion in the sect. In the study, Jun Changshao put the mask on his face, then patted it a few times, and said with relief, "You didn't let me down. Because this is the first time you have cleared the Hell mode of the high-grade life and death secret realm, all the members of the sect are rewarded with some experience points." The heavy voice sounded again. There's such a function? Jun Changshao was stunned. He released his spiritual sense to cover the entire sect and found that all the disciples were shrouded in holy light. Obviously, this was the so-called experience points. What's this? I feel like I can absorb it. The disciples sat cross-legged on the ground and absorbed the holy light around them. This power was very pure and contained the profound meaning of heaven and earth, so once absorbed, it instantly merged perfectly with the meridians and dantian. Whoosh! Whoosh! In a short time, the disciples who were stuck in a certain realm broke through to a higher level because of the absorption of the experience points, forming an extremely huge momentum of advancement. I broke through. I entered the truth-seeking realm. Excited voices sounded one after another in the sect. Li Qingyang and the others passed the Hell mode and brought benefits to the entire sect, which was something that Jun Changshao never expected. However, there was one thing that was very strange. The holy light only covered the disciples, not the higher-ups. Because it was the disciples who cleared it. The system explained. Jun Changshao said, "If Elder Lu and the others go to the Hell mode, they will also benefit after clearing it?" It should be. The system was not sure, after all, it was just an auxiliary and complaining. If there's time, let them try it. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "Anyway, they have nothing to do." If Ryu Sinan and the others heard this, they would cry and shout, "In order to prepare for the peak competition, we are so busy." Whoosh! Whoosh! Behind the mountain, in front of the life and death secret realm, Li Qingyang and the others were sent out. After defeating the boss of the third stage, they had also gained a lot of experience points, especially Li Fei and the others, who had stepped into the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Before entering, everyone had different levels of strength. After clearing the stage, everyone's strength was at the peak of the seeker realm. Although people like Li Qingyang and Yi Xingchen had not broken through, they had a deeper understanding of the martial way. In the future, if they had the opportunity, they might be able to step into the half-step heavenly fate stage. Of course. At this moment, they were not in the mood to care about the benefits of passing the level. They were still staring at Hiwudi, who had his back to them. This guy had just insta-killed the boss. Too strong. Yi Xingchen was extremely shocked. Among the disciples of the sect, he boasted that he was not inferior to others. But Hiwudi's powerful performance just now showed that the difference between the two was too great. Oh my god. Su Xiaoma walked over and said in disbelief, "Junior brother, you hid your strength too well." Hiwudi had fought before. In terms of strength, he was neither the best nor the worst. But from today's performance, he was definitely the strongest disciple of the sect of all times. It was not just the disciples. Just the one move he used in the dungeon. 9 dragons split palm. Not to mention Ryu Sinan and Gong Sun Ho, even Jun Changshao would cry with envy. Plop! At this moment, He Wudi, who had been standing proudly, suddenly collapsed to the ground like mud. Junior brother He. Su Xiaoma hurried over to help him. I'm fine. He Wudi said, I'm just a little weak. Everyone immediately understood. Although junior brother He had insta-killed the boss with one move, he had paid the price of his body being completely drained. This was normal. Otherwise, it would be too scary. Hurry. Li Qingyang said, send junior brother He to the medicine hall. No. No need. He Wudi said, carry me back to my residence. I'll recover after a few days of rest. Creak. The room door closed. As soon as Li Qingyang left, He Wudi immediately got up from the bed and said to himself, I've been exposed. His principle was to stay low, but he was influenced by Xiao Ziji and the others, so he finally decided to take action. As for lying on the ground just now, it was also intentional. He wanted to let his fellow disciples think that his strength was built on the huge price he had paid. In short, after being high-profile, he had to be low-key. However, no matter how low-key or low-key he was, it was useless. Because the terrifying explosion had been deeply imprinted in the minds of Li Qingyang and the others, especially. Su Xiaoma was still at the scene. The next day, that guy placed a chair on the training ground, stepped on it with one foot, and began to talk about the situation when they fought the boss of the 3rd stage yesterday. Damn! Is senior brother He that strong? The news of He Wudi killing the boss of the 3rd stage quickly spread throughout the sect of all times, and the disciples began to discuss it. There's such a thing. Jun Changshao also knew about it, and said while holding his chin, my last disciple is good. Of course. Su Xiaoma said, Patriarch didn't see it, but junior brother He's martial arts skill was simply. I can't even describe it. In short, it was earth-shattering. I'll go and take a look. Jun Changshao set off for the disciples' mountain. On the way, the system said, this guy has taken a fancy to other people's martial arts again. Why again? Because the entire sect was cultivating the hidden cultivation technique, which was still not outdated, was obtained from He Wudi. Invincible. How lonely. He Wudi sat on the bed and hummed a song. Suddenly, he felt that someone was coming, and hurriedly laid on the bed with a weak appearance. Creak. Jun Changshao pushed the door open and said, I know you're very weak now, so I didn't knock. Sect. Patriarch. I'm fine. It had to be said that He Wudi was the real actor. Invincible. Jun Changshao moved a chair and sat on the bed. He looked at the weak-looking disciple and said, how long have you been in the sect? He Wudi said, more than 10 years. Are you used to it? Used to it. Are you still used to it? Used to it. He Wudi answered while muttering in his heart, something's wrong. Sigh. Jun Changshao stood up and clasped his hands behind his back. Although my eternal sect has inherited the 7 profound Saint Venerable's legacy, but the martial arts he left behind are few and far between. Therefore, as your realms become stronger and stronger, it will become more and more difficult to cope with. He Wudi groaned inwardly, you're trying to trick me again. Invincible. Jun Changshao said, all these years, have I been good to you? All these years, have you received fewer resources? All these years. Patriarch, don't say any more. He Wudi took out a martial arts secret manual from his spatial ring and said with a sobbing tone, I'll hand it over. Just one. He Wudi took out another secret manual. Before Jun Changshao could speak, he said first, this time, there's no more. Actually, he still had many. However, even if he took them out, he couldn't cultivate them due to the environment and attributes. Invincible. Jun Changshao patted his shoulder and said, recuperate well. I'll visit you when I'm free. Chapter 1741. He still gave the two martial arts to Jun Changshao. Of course, the reason why he gave them out was not because the other party was shameless, but because he had a sense of identity with the sect. In the previous world, Woody's way of survival was to always be a coward, and it was unlikely that he would fight for opportunities with others, so he was also a professional gambler. His level was reset, and he came to the lower realm. After joining the sect of all times, he still followed the principle of cowardice. But in reality, the resources for cultivation were provided by the sect, and he was responsible for closing and opening the door. Occasionally, he would do sect missions, and his life was very comfortable. Since he had received so many benefits, what harm was there in contributing his own martial arts? He was human. He had to know how to be grateful. Moreover, his martial arts were completely unworthy of the Taishan seniors, and it was also an honor to hand it over to the sect for them to cultivate. Woody thought about it and figured it out. His eyes gradually filled with pride, and he said, everyone for me, I for everyone. In the study room, Jun Changshao placed the two secret manuals on the table. One was 9 Dragons Splitting Palm, and the other was Heaven and Earth into Nothing. Very historical. The system said. Not bad. Jun Changshao said, I feel it too. As he spoke, he had already flipped open the first page of 9 Dragons Splitting Palm and read it carefully. According to the settings of the book, unless it was a special tribe, most of the books were written in the Huaxia language, so the contents could be understood. Something's not right. Jun Changshao frowned. The cultivation route described in the book, and even the meridian circulation, was very different from the martial arts he had come into contact with. In fact, every plane had its own martial arts system, but no matter how many changes there were, it was still the same. However, there were too many changes in this 9 Dragons Splitting Palm, and even, some parts were completely unreasonable. Since his transmigration, Jun Changshao mostly relied on the Talisman of Insight to cultivate Nanshang City martial arts, but because of the advantages of various schools, he had a good understanding. There was no one else who could become a martial arts master by cheating. It's really strange. The system said, it's completely different from the martial arts system that the host has cultivated in the past. Jun Changshao flipped open Heaven and Earth into Nothing again, and after reading it carefully, he came to the conclusion that it was very similar to 9 Dragons Splitting Palm, and also did not belong to the upper realm martial arts. No. I have to ask Invincible. Where did you get these secret manuals? Woody was lying on the bed, stammering. Of course, he had brought the secret manual back from his previous world. But if he told others about it, wouldn't it be the same as exposing himself? The former Night Emperor had tried his best to conceal the fact that he had possessed someone else's body and was reborn. Why? Not to mention the trouble it would bring if others knew about it, just the fact that he was killed by his fiancée would be extremely embarrassing. Woody felt the same way. After all, being hunted down and forced to level up to 0 was not something to be proud of. Invincible. Jun Changshao said, all these years, have I treated you well? All these years. Patriarch. Woody stood up with a whoosh and said, I'll talk. Jun Changshao said in surprise, you can move. Woody walked to the table, put 2 teacups of different sizes on it, and said, Patriarch, this small one is the lower universe, and this big one is the upper universe. And then? Jun Changshao said. Woody put the teapot next to the 2 teacups and said, if there is a bigger universe, Patriarch, do you believe it? Yes. Jun Changshao didn't even think about it. Woody was a little dumbfounded. The Patriarch believed too decisively. If he had known, he wouldn't have used things as an analogy. Jun Changshao walked over, pointed to the teapot and said, your 2 secret manuals, did you get them from here? Yes. He Woody said seriously. At this point, he intended to confess. In fact, when he thought about it carefully, the reason he came down was that he was hunted down by a group of experts who were not weaker than him. At least he wouldn't lose face if he compared himself with Yi Xingqian. Achoo! Knight Emperor, who was cultivating, sneezed and said coldly, "Who's talking bad about me?" Jun Changshao looked at him and said, "You also came from here?" "Yes." He Woody, who had been in the sect for many years, finally confessed. As expected. Jun Changshao didn't show much surprise, as if everything was within his expectations. In fact, when he realized that the two martial arts were different from the upper universe system, he suspected that they might be from a higher plane. After all, the other party had been cultivating in the sect and couldn't have gone out to look for opportunities, so how could he have special secret manuals? In the beginning, He Woody had confessed that he was hunted down because of the 7 mysterious sunglow break and could only escape to the lower realm helplessly. However, during this period, he hid a very important thing, which was that he came from a higher plane. From the beginning to the end, Jun Changshao thought that He Woody came from the upper realm until he saw clues from the two martial arts. Then he began to wonder if he was hiding something. Is this universe very strong? How should I put it? He Woody thought for a moment and said, it can't be considered a universe, but an independent world that transcends the universe, called the Land of Eternal Life. Land of Eternal Life? Jun Changshao suddenly remembered the conversation he heard through the illusion when he inherited the Shenyuan realm, so he asked, what does it have to do with the Road of Eternal Life? Only through the Road of Eternal Life can you enter the Land of Eternal Life. He Woody explained. Where is the Road of Eternal Life? He Woody said, only when you enter the Tianji realm and comprehend a higher level will you be qualified to know the Road of Eternal Life. Understood. Jun Changshao asked again, why did you come to the lower universe? He Woody said, because of the 7 mysterious sunglow break. He had mentioned this before, and Jun Changshao also knew that he was the victim of the system's theft of the first scroll. Now that he heard him say it again, he realized that he was still in the Land of Eternal Life when it was stolen. Now, there was a new problem. The 7 mysterious sunglow breaks remnant scroll actually existed in a higher realm. Did it mean that the 7 mysterious sage was more powerful than he thought? What was your strength in the past? Sage. Was it very strong? It was so-so. Jun Changshao muttered in his heart, looking at the situation, it shouldn't be very high. Are there other realms? Below is the sage, above is the sage. The sage of the 7 mysterious sage, so it represented a realm. Jun Changshao thought it was a name or a Dao name. Jun Changshao said, you have been hiding it from me, could it be that you have enemies in the Land of Eternal Life? Not in the past. He Woody clenched his fists and said, but because the 7 mysterious sunglow breaks remnant scroll was suddenly stolen, I had countless enemies, and in the end, I was forced to come to the lower realm. Jun Changshao was speechless. If this guy knew that the remnant scroll was stolen by the system, would he go berserk on the spot? No. He couldn't tell him about this. It's okay. He Woody's anger weakened a little, and said, I am very fortunate to be able to enter the sect of all times, very fortunate to be a disciple of the sect established by Senior 7 Mysterious. Jun Changshao said, it can be considered a blessing in disguise, no need to take it to heart that the remnant scroll was stolen. One must look forward, not back. Let the past be the past, we still have to look at the future. The item was stolen by the system, and he didn't know at that time. He was innocent because he didn't know. The only thing he could do now was to comfort him, not to think about who the thief was, not to hold grudges, because it was meaningless. Chapter 1742. From He Woody, Jun Changshao learned about the Land of Immortality. However, he did not feel anything because he had yet to reach a higher level. There was no need for him to know more about it. In short, one had to take one step at a time and experience it step by step. When he reached the peak in the upper universe, he would naturally understand what he needed to understand. Right now, he still had to cultivate these two martial arts. After returning to his residence, Jun Changshao took out the 9-dragon split palm and an insight talisman from the space ring. He said seriously, "Cultivate." Paw! He crushed it skillfully. However, when Jun Changshao obtained the power of insight and began to read the secret manual, he found that it was still unfathomable. It was completely different from the feeling of being enlightened just by reading the chant. Although I don't want to discourage the host, there is something I have to say. The system said, "How long has it been since you upgraded the insight talisman?" Jun Changshao was silent. The insight talisman was still in the upper realm version. Now, he had left the upper realm and started the era of space travel. Naturally, it was outdated. Moreover, the two martial arts came from the land of immortality. It was no exaggeration to say that there were not many powerhouses in the upper universe who knew about the land of immortality. Jun Changshao already had the martial arts secret manual there. This was a lead. Alright. I can only rely on the store. Jun Changshao opened the system store with great familiarity. It was not a problem for him to comprehend the 9-dragon split palm. After all, he had cheated and had a very high understanding of martial arts. However, as the master of a sect, he was busy with development. If there was a shortcut, he would naturally take it. The system said, "I like the host's attitude of, I am cheating, I am right." It was very happy. Jun Changshao had not opened the system store for a long time. Recently, he had obtained the Shenyuan boundary. He did not lack martial arts resources at all. If he continued to improve himself, there would be an unemployment crisis in the future. In fact, it was not that Jun Changshao did not want to use the store. It was just that after upgrading to the upper realm version, even if he was a VIP user, there was a refresh limit. This made him feel too restrained. That was right. There were heaven-defying items in the store that could strengthen the sect. However, as the master of a sect, how could he squat at home every day waiting for the cooldown to refresh? If he had the time, he could go out and earn more resources. The eternal sect was placed in the eternal world, and the disciples were doing tasks as usual, so their contribution points were increasing every day. Jun Changshao didn't hesitate to activate the annual contract. After all, it gave him more chances to refresh. Frequent refresh sounds rang in his ears. From this, it could be seen that nothing good had come out. Because if there was something good, this fellow would definitely squat on the chair and cover his face while laughing strangely. 2. Right now, he was in a serious mood. Even the word dog's leftovers had never appeared. 2. Item, Heavenly Might's Secret Realm. Introduction, a supreme secret realm that exists in the upper universe system. Effect, the Sky Secret Realm was transformed from the Sky Secret Realm. It experienced 100,000 years of fierce battles. Countless experts fell here and turned into dead souls to guard it. If defeated, one can obtain various martial arts resources. Advantage, it contains treasures, equipment, martial arts, and elixir recipes. Disadvantage, only disciples can enter. Price, 10,000 reputation points. Grade, Supreme. Supreme? Jun Changshao held his chin and said, higher than the life and death secret realm. The system said, the introduction did not mention experience points. It should be a place focused on getting equipment. I don't have that many reputation points. Otherwise, I would have bought it. During this period of time, the disciples did missions and accumulated a lot of contribution points for Jun Changshao. However, the system had long collapsed. Except for the annual card and the refresh times, it was almost the same number. So if he wanted to buy good things, he had to rely on reputation points. Unfortunately, during this period of time, he only had 5,000 reputation points. Keep it. The system said, buy it when you have it. Then won't it be stuck? Jun Changshao still wanted to refresh the Talisman of Insight. The system said, the refresh rate of the secret realm is not high. Moreover, it is a supreme item. The host is advised to save it to avoid any regrets. Okay. Jun Changshao returned to the store page and continued to look at the follow-up items. At this time, he found another item called Independent Battlefield. He clicked on the introduction. That's right. It was the former Shenyuan domain. Good lord. Jun Changshao said, the store really steals everything. He took a glance and said in surprise, 100,000 reputation points. After coming to the upper realm, Jun Changshao also bought reputation points. Most of them were around a few thousand. The Sky Secret Realm that had just appeared was the most expensive. He did not expect the price to be 10 times higher in the Shenyuan domain. What did this mean? That's right. He inherited it without spending a single cent. It was a huge profit. Mountain. Jun Chang smiled and said, you've saved me a lot of money. When the independent battlefield appeared in the store, it really showed the importance of the Koirin Mountain. There were no more good items below, so Jun Changshao took back the store and went to the Spacetime Secret Realm with the 9-dragon split palm. Since it could not be refreshed, he could only rely on himself. Ta! After entering the Spacetime Secret Realm, Jun Changshao turned his back to the camera and said, if I don't understand this martial art, I won't step out of the back mountain. The system said, you can finish sprinkling flowers in advance. Time flew by, and time passed quickly. Senior brother. Su Xiaoma asked, Patriarch hasn't come out yet? No. Li Qingyang shook his head. We've been going back and forth for 2 months. What exactly is the Sect master trying to comprehend? Su Xiaoma was very puzzled. Li Qingyang said, it should be a profound martial art. Sigh. Xiao Ziji came out from the back mountain, holding a pile of hair in his hand and said, Patriarch is bald again. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma were not surprised. In their view, as long as Patriarch was focused on something, it was like a wildfire that could not be burned, the hair that grew again in the spring wind would definitely fall off. He Wudi, who was standing in the distance and listening to their conversation, thought, although these 2 martial arts are not the best, it would take at least a few hundred years to master them. Patriarch, ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, laughter came from the back mountain. He's out. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuiji, and the others hurried over. As soon as they entered the back mountain, they saw Patriarch standing outside the Spacetime Secret Realm with his hands on his waist, laughing. Because of the sunlight, his head was shining brightly. Could it be, he Wudi, who heard the news, was shocked, he comprehended it. Shwa! At this moment, Jun Changshao opened his legs and put his hands in front of his chest, quickly forming a seal. The surrounding heaven and earth attributes were immediately mobilized, forming a spectacular scene. This is, Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji's hair was messed up by the wind. Their eyes flashed with shock, junior brother he's martial art. Rising Dragon Lord of Mount Lu. Roar! Roar! As Jun Changshao shouted the name of the martial art, the surrounding heaven and earth attributes gathered and turned into 9 dragon beasts, rushing toward the 9 mountains in the distance. Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. The mountains cracked, and heaven and earth lost their color. He Wudi roared, what the hell is Rising Dragon Lord of Mount Lu? Chapter 1743. In just 2 months, Jun Changshao had comprehended the 9-dragon split palm with his own efforts. Although he was only at the beginning, it was undeniable that without the help of props, his talent and comprehension were still very strong, worthy of the title of martial arts master. How long has it been? He Wudi was shocked. Unbelievable. Thinking back to the time when he cultivated the 9-dragon split palm, he had spent hundreds of years. Sigh. as expected of the successor of the sect founded by Senior Qishuan. At that moment, as the leader of the trio, He Wudi's admiration for Jun Changshao was like a torrential river. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma rubbed his hands and said, "Can we cultivate such a powerful martial art?" "Of course." Jun Changshao said, "Everyone has a copy." Hearing that his secret manual was defined as a public martial art, He Wudi puffed out his chest and showed a proud expression. On the same day, Jun Changshao made more than 100,000 copies of the Nine Dragons Split Palm and sent them to the disciples one by one. This kind of high-level martial art from the land of eternal life was a bit crazy for everyone in the sect of all times to have a copy. However, whether they could cultivate it or not depended on themselves. Creak. Yi Xingqian leaned against the door and looked down at the Nine Dragons Split Palm in his hand. He looked more and more excited. He had seen He Wudi use it with his own eyes and saw him kill a powerful boss in seconds, so he was naturally fascinated by this kind of martial art. Knight Emperor was very proud. He never thought that his talent was weaker than He Wudi's. The reason why the other party could be so strong must be because of the martial art. Indeed. In their current realm, both of them were at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. If they had to compete, they could only start with martial arts and equipment. No. No. Yi Xingqian began to comprehend the Nine Dragons Split Palm and soon found that this martial art was completely different from the ones he had come into contact with before. It was even, extremely mysterious and unpredictable. It was difficult. It was also challenging. Knight Emperor's eyes burned. He liked challenges. He liked excitement. However, when he walked out of his room at dawn, he looked up at the sky and roared helplessly in his heart, "It's too difficult." The fact that Jun Changshao had spent more than 2 months comprehending the Nine Dragons Split Palm was enough to show how difficult it was to cultivate. Furthermore, the disciples had never used the Insight Talisman before, so, in the next few days, one after another, he saw Li Qingyang and the others pass by listlessly, as if they had lost their souls. They had been trying to comprehend the Nine Dragons Splitting Palm all this time. They had been trying to comprehend it until they had a splitting headache, but they still hadn't gained anything. That was how they ended up like this. In short, it was too taxing on the mind and body. Patriarch. He Wudi said, "Although the nature of heaven and earth in the eternal world can drive the Nine Dragons Splitting Palm, it can't be perfectly matched. It's extremely difficult to cultivate. I hope you can remind your fellow disciples to act according to their ability and not waste too much time on things that are impossible." Invincible. Jun Changshao said meaningfully, "The more impossible something is, the more we have to overcome it. This is the spirit of the sect of all times." That's right. The Nine Dragons Splitting Palm was difficult. But if one chose to give up because of this reason, it would only lead to laziness. Martial arts is like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't advance, you will fall behind. Jun Changshao said. He Wudi said, "Patriarch is right." He also began to reflect on himself. Because he had joined the sect of all times, he had a variety of resources and gradually developed the mentality of stretching out his hand and opening his mouth. This was absolutely not desirable. It was very difficult for the disciples to cultivate the Nine Dragons Splitting Palm, but no one chose to give up. They were still working hard to the point that they even forgot to eat and sleep. Of course, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were stuck at the peak of the truth-seeking realm, so they had plenty of time to comprehend. Most of the inner and outer disciples did not forget to cultivate other martial arts to improve their realm while comprehending the Nine Dragons Splitting Palm. To be exact, He Wudi's worries were unnecessary. The self-discipline of his fellow disciples was far stronger than he imagined. Jun Changshao would also teach Wu Tang when he was free. He would use his own cultivation experience to explain their doubts. It could be said that this was the first time a sect master taught his disciples without relying on the Talisman of Insight. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, Tireless Teaching. The reward is 50 contribution points. After a few days of teaching Wu-Tang, a notification sounded in his ears. Only 50 contribution points. Jun Changshao was speechless. The system sharply complained, "This is obviously the early stage of the mission. It's almost the end of the mission. Shouldn't the host reflect on it?" Under Jun Changshao's guidance, many disciples benefited a lot. Although they could not immediately comprehend the 9-dragon splitting palm, at least they could avoid many detours and pave the way for the whole nation to have success in cultivation in the future. Of course. There was another martial art, heaven and earth transformation. Jun Changshao sat in the study and flipped to the first page of the secret manual. Seeing the description, if one mastered this skill, heaven and earth could be transformed into nothing, he said in shock, "So terrifying?" After all, it comes from a higher level of martial arts. The system said, take the host's heaven crossing palm for example. In the lower realm, it would be a godly skill that could destroy heaven and earth. That makes sense. Jun Changshao said, "I really hope to enter the land of eternal life and see how strong the martial artists there are." He was the patriarch of the sect of all times and also a martial artist. Naturally, he yearned for a higher level of enlightenment. Work hard. Good luck. It's too difficult. A few days later, Jun Changshao lay on his bed, despair appearing on his face. 9-dragon splitting palm was already very difficult, but heaven and earth transformation was even more difficult. He had not comprehended a single bit of it until now. It was as if he was reading a wordless heavenly book. Forget it, forget it. Jun Changshao kept the secret manual and said, "Let's hurry on our way." The system was speechless. The path of martial arts is like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind. That was said for the disciples to hear. When it comes to him, he gives up as soon as he encounters a setback. Jun Changshao did not share heaven and earth transformation with the disciples because they were currently focused on studying the 9-dragon splitting palm. There was no time to cultivate another profound martial art. Beep. Only 2 days away from the mountain and sea realm. Jun Changshao's face lit up with a smile when he heard the system notification. Brother is coming for you. After meeting, we won't go home until we're drunk." Whoosh! Eternal shuttled through the universe. In the area it was heading towards, a large plane gradually appeared in their field of vision. According to the map, this was the mountain and sea realm. Jun Changshao stood in the cockpit and put his hand to his ear. After listening for a while, he said, "I hear my brother calling me." The system said, "The explosive man is about to arrive." Whoosh! Eternal suddenly accelerated and dragged the scorching light into the mountain and sea realm. Finally, it floated in the sky. "Brother! I'm coming!" Whoosh! At that moment, a saber light suddenly shot out from below and pierced through the hull at an extremely fast speed. Crack! Jun Changshao hurriedly looked down and found that a small crack had appeared on the floor. Then, it spread endlessly to the left and right and began to crack. He held his head and collapsed. "My ship, crack crack crack." Eternal was split into two and started to fall freely. Humph! Gu Tianqing floated in the air, the woodcutting axe in his right hand glowing. He said with a cold gaze, "You people from the star spirit world actually dare to harass us." Chapter 1744. Mountain Sea Realm. The wreckage of Eternal was scattered in the wilderness, and occasionally, green smoke would float up. After spending so much time and effort to come to the world of his brother's reincarnation, it was cut down by his father right away. This made Jun Changshao kneel on the ground, holding his chest and crying. My ship, my ship. Why did you die so miserably?" Jun Patriarch. Gu Tianqing, who was sitting beside him, said awkwardly, "Why didn't you tell me in advance?" Eternal was actually a repaired Star Spirit World battleship, so its appearance didn't change much, making him think that it was an invasion. "Uncle. I wanted to say that too." But your axe was too fast, not giving me a chance at all. It's not a big problem. At this time, the Taishan old man standing in front of the wreckage transmitted his voice. It can still be repaired, but it needs time. Uncle Gu was amazing. His axe went down in a clean and swift manner. Although the battleship was broken in half, it wasn't heavily damaged internally. Which meant that Eternal could still be saved. Shengwan Xinyao walked to the broken part of the battleship and said, "What's this?" In between the iron plates, there was a very unassuming crystal. It occasionally trembled like a small heart. Strange. The Taishan old man walked over and studied it. Why is there such a thing? The crystal didn't belong to the battleship formation system and was completely independent. If not for the naked eye, even spiritual sense wouldn't be able to find it. Could it be, the Taishan old man guessed, some device that reveals the location of the battleship? That's right. Gu Tianqing appeared in front of him and dug out the crystal. This thing is called space-shaking stone. It can produce a kind of energy wave that will return to the mother stone no matter how far away it is. So, you are being monitored. When Jun Changshao heard this, he immediately laughed. He was still guessing whether or not the star spirit world found them because of a tracking device. Today, the case was finally solved. Damn. The system said, it was originally a bad thing, but it suddenly became a good thing. Little Shirbai and I are happy. The tracker that had been hidden in Eternal's metal plate was immediately exposed after Gu Tianqing cut it open. It was such a coincidence. Jun Changshao gently crushed the void-quaking stone and sneered, "How are you going to find him?" Jun Patriarch. Gu Tianqing asked, "What brings you here to the mountain and sea realm?" Jun Changshao hurriedly said with a straight face, "Senior Gu, you saved my upper realm from disaster. After much consideration, I've decided to pay you a visit to express my gratitude and respect." He would not say that he was looking for Gu Zhaoxi, for fear of exposing his brother's reincarnation. But in reality, Gu Tianqing already knew about it. He and his wife wouldn't care that Gu Zhaoxi had the spirit of reincarnation and that reincarnation was like cheating, because all of this was predestined, because he was their son. AI. Gu Tianqing sighed and said, "If my son didn't run away from home, I would definitely receive Jun Patriarch well." What? Jun Changshao said in shock, "My brother ran away from home." Your brother? Realizing that he had said too much, Jun Changshao hurriedly explained, "I see Senior as my uncle, so your son is my brother." What a beautiful way to put it. AI. Gu Tianqing didn't think too much and sighed again, saying, "Unfortunately, your brother is too insensible. He ran away from home before he even grew up." Why? Jun Changshao asked. With his understanding of Gu Zhaoxi, with such strong parents, why would he run away from home? Could it be that he went to find him? "Brother. You've moved me." Gu Tianqing said, "I don't like my fiancé." Jun Changshao fell silent. At this time, if Gu Zhaoxi was here, he would definitely reprimand him as a brother. You don't even like the daughter of the realm lord? Why don't you go to heaven and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun? Speaking of his son, Gu Tianqing seemed to have turned into a bitter old man. He grumbled, "His parents are the most handsome man and the most beautiful woman in the mountain and sea realm. How are they not good enough for him?" "Uncle Gu, please calm down." Jun Changshao consoled, "After all, your brother is still young." Although he didn't approve of Gu Zhaoxi running away from home, he was still his brother, so he had to speak up for him. AI. Gu Tianqing shook his head and said, "Poor parents." "Uncle." Jun Changshao said, "Then hurry up and find your brother." From Senior Gu to Uncle Gu, their relationship was getting closer. "That little brat stole an energy-concealing pill that I refined. It's not easy to find it in the mountain and sea realm," Gu Tianqing said. Jun Changshao was stunned. To be able to render Senior Gu helpless with just a single pill, this was definitely very impressive. If the medicine hall could refine it, ding. Side quest activated. A quest? Jun Changshao hurriedly opened the quest panel and clicked on the description. The content was, "Help Gu Tianqing find his son who ran away from home, incomplete." This was a quest. It was definitely a freebie quest. Jun Changshao had traveled thousands of miles to the mountain and sea realm to reunite with his brother, so finding Gu Tianqing was only natural. There's a note. Unlike the previous side quests, there was a note at the end of the description. The content was, upon completion, the reward was the energy concealing pill formula X1. Jun Changshao was stunned for a second, then quickly covered his mouth to prevent himself from laughing out loud. This was really what he wanted to get. "Uncle," Jun Changshao said solemnly, "I'm here to help you find your brother." This, swoosh. 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 As soon as he said that, 100,000 disciples of the sect of all times, 1,000,000 devil army, and tens of thousands of Diablo appeared. Swoosh. Jun Changshao stood up and said, "No matter how big the mountain and sea realm is, I will definitely find my brother." If it were anyone else, they might be surprised by the sudden appearance of so many martial artists, but Gu Tianqing was different. After all, he was one of the strongest in the upper universe, and he was in a hurry to find his son, so he cupped his hands and said, "Sorry to trouble you, Jun Patriarch." The energy-concealing pill could hide all auras. Finding it by himself was like finding a needle in a haystack. At this time, more people became more important. "Disciples, listen up," Jun Changshao said loudly, "search every inch of the way. We must find Senior Gu's son." Yes. Swoosh. 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 In an instant, except for the old man Taishen and his formation team, the other disciples of the sect of all times quickly flew in different directions. "Uncle," Jun Changshao said weakly, "what's the energy-concealing pill?" Speaking of the pill, Gu Tianqing said proudly, "This is a magical formula that I have spent thousands of years researching. Anyone who takes it will not reveal any aura. It can be said to be deceiving everyone." Jun Changshao was silent. So the energy-concealing pill formula was developed by him. If I complete the mission, wouldn't it be the same as stealing from my brother's father? No. How could I, Jun Changshao, do something that goes against justice? Chapter 1745. Schwa. Schwa. In the depths of the forest, a figure darted out, dodging all kinds of fierce beasts, and landed in front of a lake. It was a pink and tender boy, about 5 or 6 years old. That's right. It was Gu Zhaoxi, who had run away from home. Logically speaking, he should have retained most of his memories from his previous life, so how could he do such a childish thing? You guys don't know. Gu Zhaoxi looked at the camera and said painfully, "My fiancée looks so scary." Every time he thought of the first time he met the Realm Lord's daughter, every time he thought of her appearance, his scalp felt like it was about to explode, and his spine was drenched in cold sweat. For his future happiness, he had to reject this marriage. However, his father would definitely not agree because of their friendship, so he could only slip away early. Running away from home was what Gu Tianqing defined. In fact, Gu Zhaoxi's behavior was completely considered running away from marriage, although he was still underage and running away a little early. Gulp, gulp. After drinking a bowl of spring water, he sat cross-legged on a rock and began to breathe. Although he was at the stage of running away from home, he naturally could not relax in his cultivation. Gu Zhaoxi was now mainly cultivating martial arts such as the Major Thousand Shadows art and the Heaven Crossing palm print. Because he had studied them in the sect in his previous life, he was already familiar with them at a young age. Voila! At this moment, the sound of water could be heard. Gu Zhaoxi opened his eyes and looked back. He saw someone jumping into the lake to take a bath. It was summer in the mountain and sea realm, so it was normal to take a shower, but the person taking a bath was actually a woman. Although she was wearing clothes, after entering the water, this woman was about 17 or 18 years old, and her golden hair floated on the water. She had a delicate nose, rosy cheeks, and bright eyes. There was a hint of enchantment. Gu Zhaoxi, who had reincarnated countless times, could remain absolutely calm. After all, it was not like he had never seen a beauty before. However, he could not help but think to himself, she's dozens of times prettier than my fiancée. No. Tens of thousands of times. How ugly was this? That was why there was such a big difference. The blonde beauty seemed to have sensed something. She raised her head and looked at the bushes in the distance. Her gaze met with Gu Zhaoxi's. Look at me. I'm looking at you. The scene seemed to freeze. You. The golden-haired woman frowned and said, Are you peeking at me bathing? What a joke. Am I, Gu Zhaoxi, that kind of person? Although she thought so in her heart, she still tried to put on a harmless smile and said innocently, Sister, I'm just passing by. It had to be said that Gu Zhaoxi's childlike appearance could help him resolve a lot of problems. At least at this time, people wouldn't think that he was a voyeur. After all, who could look like a child? Hua! The blonde woman flew out of the lake. The towel on the shore came to her uninvited and quickly wrapped around her body. Barefoot and wet hair, she landed in front of Gua. She put a small dagger on his neck and said coldly, You're so young and you've already learned bad things. What will happen when you grow up? Sister. Gu Zhaoxi said seriously, I came first. You came later. That's not important. What's important is that you saw something you shouldn't see. As a punishment, you. The blonde woman's killing intent appeared and she said, Must die. What can I see when you're bathing and wearing clothes? Although Gu Zhaoxi wanted to roar, he still calmed down and said, Can you be reasonable? I am reasonable. The blonde woman put the dagger closer and said, Remember, after reincarnation, don't peek at women bathing. Gu Zhaoxi was speechless. In all honesty, I just came out to drink water. It was you who jumped into the lake to take a bath. How can you blame me? Alas! This woman was unreasonable. Swish! Suddenly, Gu Zhaoxi hit the dagger away with his right hand and ran out like a rabbit. When he was hundreds of feet away, he turned back and shouted, Who would peek at an ugly woman bathing? The blonde woman said angrily, Little bastard, you're courting death. Ugly woman, ugly woman. Gu Zhaoxi shouted as he ran. In fact, he could easily avoid the blonde woman from the beginning. However, in order to avoid alerting the nearby beasts, he planned to use the identity of a child to fool around. Since it didn't work, he could only rely on his strength. Roar! Roar! Sure enough, the nearby beasts noticed and roared. Xiao! At this moment, the blonde woman chased from behind. Before she arrived, her killing intent arrived first. This was exactly what Gu Zhaoxi wanted. After all, there were so many beasts. They would definitely surround her, which would be beneficial for him to escape. Wait a minute. Why were the beasts all staring at him and not at her? Swish! Swish! At this time, dozens of huge beasts came from the left and right. They were like small mountains blocking the way. Ga! Helplessly, he braked. Little bastard! The blonde woman flew over and landed on a snow-white lion. She smiled, revealing 2 sharp teeth, and said, Why aren't you running? Gu Zhaoxi frowned and said, You're not human. Pfft! The blonde woman was amused by him and said, In a world dominated by beasts, humans are rare. Since you're not human, why do you care about being peeped at bathing? As Gu Zhaoxi spoke, he scanned his surroundings and realized that he was surrounded by demon beasts. There was no way out for him. The blonde woman said coldly, You human women value reputation. Why can't I value it? These words made Gu Zhaoxi speechless. Today. The blonde woman said, "No one can save you. You must prove my innocence with your death." Gu Xiaoxi's mouth twitched. "What did I do to you? I have to prove my innocence." "Fine." Gu Xiaoxi sat cross-legged on the ground and took out a small wooden token, saying, "I don't want to make a big deal out of this. You forced me." "Heavenly Star token?" The blonde woman said with a serious look, "Who are you to Gu Tianqing?" Gu Xiaoxi said proudly, "His son." With such an awesome father, it was natural for him to be firm in his words. After hearing the word son, the blonde woman's eyes had a trace of resentment and anger, and said, "So you're Gu Tianqing's son?" Gu Xiaoxi caught the slightly complicated emotions in her eyes and said in his heart, "It's over. This woman may have an unclear relationship with father. If I take the initiative to reveal my identity, I'm afraid it will backfire." "Go ahead." The blonde woman said, "Let the Gu couple come." Gu Xiaoxi hesitated. If he just called his father, it wouldn't be a big problem. But if he called his mother, it would definitely make his father cry. "No. I can't let my mother know about my father's emotional problems outside, or the problem will be serious." Gu Xiaoxi put the Heavenly Star token into the space ring and said, "You're not my wife. Why should I do as you say?" "You won't." The blonde woman flew up from the lion beast, the dagger in her hand flashing with cold light, and said, "Then die." Gu Xiaoxi wouldn't wait for death. Just as he was about to turn and run, he suddenly found a stream of light flashing from the distant sky, and then landed in front of him with a boom. An emotional voice came from the dusty area, "Brother, I'm here." A lifetime. What was there to cherish? A vagrant, no extravagant love. In this life, we'll be brothers in this life. No afterlife, I'll think of you in the afterlife. Drifting river, every night, it's raining, I think of you. The song, Ren Xianqi's brother, echoed in the sky, and the brotherly feelings after a long separation instantly burned to the peak. Chapter 1746. Accompanied by the sound of BMG, Jun Changshao appeared in front of Gu Xiaoxi. As for the blonde woman who rushed over, she was also sent flying and looked at him with a fearful gaze. This person. His strength was extraordinary. Seeing the appearance of the person through the layers of dust, Gu Xiaoxi said in surprise, "Jun Patriarch?" When Jun Changshao heard this, his heart ached. The two of them had met before, and it was no problem to call him Jun Patriarch. But now that they knew that he was reincarnated, they seemed a little distant. "It's my fault. I didn't protect my brother well and let him die in the line of duty. This kind of thing. It would never happen again in the future." Clang! Jun Changshao took out the immortal sword and said with a cold gaze, "Who dares to touch my brother?" In just 6 words, the emotions were exaggerated to the extreme. At this moment, not to mention a woman, even if the gods and demons dared to touch Gu Xiaoxi, Jun Changshao would kill gods and demons. Brother. It was not just words. So strange. Gu Xiaoxi thought to himself, why am I so excited? When Jun Changshao appeared and called him brother, his blood boiled and his emotions soared, but he still couldn't figure out the reason. Your brother peeked at me bathing. The blonde woman said coldly, as his brother, what do you say? When Jun Changshao, who was quite serious, heard this, the corner of his mouth suddenly twitched. My brother actually has this hobby? Bullshit. Gu Xiaoxi roared, I didn't peek at you bathing. I believe in my brother. Jun Chang smiled and said, he'll only look openly, he won't peek. That's right. Gu Xiaoxi proudly puffed out his chest and said, Gu Xiaoxi, am upright and do not do sneaky things. Wait. What did he mean by openly looking? Gu Xiaoxi finally came around and roared, I didn't look at her at all, she jumped down herself. You finally admit it? The golden-haired woman sneered, Gu Tianqing is also a famous expert. I didn't expect him to give birth to such a shameless son. Gu Zhaoxi said angrily, "You can humiliate my father, but you can't humiliate me." Jun Changshao felt that there was something wrong with this statement, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. "Cut the crap." The golden-haired woman raised her hand and said, "Both of you must die." Roar! Roar! The hundreds of demon beasts in the vicinity seemed to have received an order. They instantly pounced towards Jun Changshao and Gu Zhaoxi. The air was filled with a baleful aura. "Brother, don't be afraid." Jun Changshao stood in front of Gu Zhaoxi and said, "Big brother is here." To him, these demonic beasts were not worth mentioning and could be easily killed. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, another roar came from afar. Jun Changshao and Gu Zhaoxi subconsciously looked back, and their expressions froze. In their field of vision, huge birds swarmed over from the sky. There were eagles, condors, dragons, and pigs. There were so many of them. It was just that there were so many of them, but they were all extremely powerful. With a slight spread of his spiritual senses, he could clearly sense that there were more than 5,000 of them that were comparable to the upper-level truth-seeking realm, and there was no lack of half-step heavenly secrets realm experts. Not good. Jun Changshao frowned. Humph. The golden-haired woman crossed her arms and sneered. "No one in the world can save you now." From the other party's calm expression, Jun Changshao understood that the demonic beasts that suddenly attacked must be on her side. "Brother. How did he get into so much trouble at such a young age? Let's go." Jun Changshao hugged Gu Zhaoxi and rushed through the demonic beasts that pounced on them. Roar! At this moment, a giant eagle that was larger than a mountain flew over from the sky, its sharp claws seemingly shattering the void. Boom! Jun Changshao repelled it with his true spirit power and immediately chose to take a detour. However, just as he was about to turn around, a pig beast that was flying with its ears opened its mouth and sneezed. Smelly saliva splashed over like a fairy scattering flowers. So disgusting! Buzz! Jun Changshao hurriedly formed a defensive barrier in front of him. Bang! 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 The saliva was like a cannonball, causing a huge impact. This also forced Go Sheng to land with Gu Zhaoxi in his arms and choose another direction, Ga. He stopped where he was. It was impossible to run anymore. Because at this moment, all kinds of strange giant demonic beasts gathered in the surroundings and even the sky. Just the powerful evil aura that erupted was enough to make people feel pressured. Mississippi Jun Changshao put Gu Zhaoxi down and said amiably, "There must be a misunderstanding. Why don't we sit down and talk about it? It's better to squash enmity than to keep it alive." From the bottom of his heart. "Talk? Sure." The golden-haired woman said, "You peeked at me bathing. Destroy your eyes first." Jun Changshao frowned. "Damn it." Gu Zhaoxi took out the heavenly star token and said angrily, "Don't push me too far." He thought that Jun Patriarch could save him, but it seemed that it was useless. He could only call his father. "What's this? After you crush it, you can summon my father. Then what are you waiting for? Crush it and call for reinforcements." The demonic beasts of the mountain and sea realm were powerful, especially with so many of them gathered. Jun Changshao was confident that he could escape, but he would have to pay a heavy price. If Senior Gu came, there would be no problem. Gu Zhaoxi also wanted to crush it. However, if this woman had something to do with his father, and his mother found out, wouldn't he be in trouble? Roar! Roar! At this time, a huge ape beast as white as snow walked over with earth-shattering steps. It grabbed a floating corpse koan and swallowed it. Then, it pounded its chest and evolved into a level 999 ancient bloodthirsty demon ape. Whoosh! The golden-haired woman landed on its head and said, "I'll give you to the count of 3. Either destroy your eyes or become the ape's food." Jun Changshao's eyes were solemn. This huge ape beast that was taller than a mountain was as strong as the 9 combined Dharma phases. The mountain and sea realm. Its level was very high. 1. 2. Just as the golden-haired woman was about to count to 3, Gu Xiaoxi raised the token high and shouted, "Father, I'm sorry." "Pa!" The heavenly star token was instantly crushed. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, a gust of wind erupted on the spot, and billowing airwaves spread out like turbulent waves. Jun Changxiao's eyes widened because Gu Tianqing stood in the airwave area with his hands behind his back like an otherworldly expert. Damn! Reinforcements came too fast. My son. Gu Tianqing's eyes were cold. What's the matter? The heavenly star token was the life-saving trump card he gave to his son. Now that he suddenly crushed it to summon him, he must be in big trouble. Father. Gu Xiaoxi pointed at the golden-haired woman and said angrily, "She wants to kill me." "Kill my son? You're courting death." Gu Tianqing, who looked like an honest man, was instantly enraged. Then, he looked in the direction he was pointing and saw the golden-haired woman. His expression froze. Sure enough. Father knows her. Swish! The sound of wind breaking came from the sky, and Mother Gu rushed over. She could also sense that her son had crushed the heavenly star token. It's over. Damn it. Just as Gu Xiaoxi was about to collapse, the golden-haired woman jumped down from the ape beast and bowed like a lady from a noble family. Greetings, uncle and auntie. As she spoke, she secretly glared at Gu Xiaoxi. That resentful look seemed to be saying, "You really crushed the heavenly star token." Child. Mother Gu smiled. Why are you here? Gu Xiaoxi was stunned. The plot that appeared at this moment was completely different from what he had imagined. Father. Gu Xiaoxi whispered, "You and mother know her." Nonsense. Gu Tianqing said, "How can I not know my future daughter-in-law?" Ha! Gu Xiaoxi's eyes widened and his mouth opened. The one who collapsed the most was Jun Changxiao. After all this fuss, it turned out that she was his brother's fiancée. Was it fun to play love and hate here? Or were they deliberately teasing him? Uncle. Auntie. Brother. Go Xing cupped his fists and said, "Sorry to disturb you." Swish. After saying that, he disappeared without a trace. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.